It's time to pull up a stool and grab your spot at the bar. The stadiums are dark, the scoreboards are off, and the final whistle has long since blown. But in here, the lights stay on. Welcome to the ETB Lounge on the Empty the Bench Network. This is your official post-game nightcap, where we break down the biggest hits, pour one out for the heartbreaks, and dive into the stories that linger long after the clock hits zero. Whether you're here for sharp analysis or one last round of sports talk with the best fans in the game, you've come to the right place. The games are over, and the conversation is just getting started.
Oh man, fellas, the brackets have been shredded. The net has been cut in Phoenix, and while the champagne is still drawing for UCLA, the rest of the sports world is busy burning the playbook. Welcome again, my friends, to the ETB Lounge. My name is Callan McClurg, and we start tonight in the desert where a new dynasty might have just found its foundation. As UCLA did not just win their first ever women's national championship on Sunday, they made a statement in doing so that will echo through the Big Ten for years to come. A 79-51 dismantling of South Carolina as they ran into a buzzsaw, and the Bruins are heading back to Westwood with the hardware. On the flip side, we got the men's game still in progress. And let's be honest, though, guys, after all the chaos that we've seen in the last 2 days, the trophy might as well be up for grabs in a barroom brawl like it is tonight. But if you thought the hardwood was wild, you haven't been watching the diamond. Joe Adell spent his weekend turning home run trots into tragedies. Not one, not two, 3 home run robberies in one game, including a literal flip over the right field wall that defied physics. Has him looking like a glitch in the Matrix. But of course, the news isn't all that great for the Angels, as Mike Trout is dealing again with being hit on the hand and another injury for the Angels' ailing star. And the collective breath of Orange County is officially being held once again. In the world of the NHL, the Island is looking for a new captain as Patrick Waugh is officially out as the Islanders head coach, proving once again that legendary status does not buy you much time in the front office when the wins stop coming. And speaking of things being born in the cold, we actually had a baby born at center ice this week in Edmonton, and talk about an early entry into the NHL draft pool. But also in the NBA, fellas, the Lakers are limping towards the finish line. Losing Luka, Dončić, and Austin Reaves to the injury report is a kind of 1-2 punch that could knock LeBron's squad out of the play-in tournament entirely. And that wasn't enough. We've got the NBA sniffing around the Bucks injury reports with Giannis and looking for why the Bucks star seems to be taking maintenance days a little too conveniently. We also have other shakeups too, and a new face of the bar joining us tonight as well. Guys, the lounge is open. At the bar tonight is our good man, Ben Kruse, our resident professor, Tom Albano, and more importantly, folks, making his ET debut is Mr. Nate Miller joining us in box 3. Gentlemen, the Bruins are the queens of the NCAA for women's basketball. Joe Adell is swiping away dreams, and I'm pretty sure someone is getting fired in Milwaukee. Let's pour one out for the opening round. But Tom, great to see you, my friend. Welcome back. Good to see you as always, my man. How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing a lot better than Ben Kruse right now. I'm doing well, though. Obviously, plenty to talk about, as you mentioned, Callan. A lot going on in the sports world today. There's a lot of madness, and it's not just with March.
And there's a lot of madness involving Ben Kruse trying to watch the UConn men right now as he come down the pipeline. Ben, I'm maybe away from UConn men's basketball and women's basketball giving you a heart attack over the past couple of days. Is everything okay? Do we have to call an ambulance, or are you good?
Oh, they just ran into a better team. They had the little bit of luck to beat Duke. I mean, that was obviously in a real moment. I'll be real. This team wasn't one of their dominant teams, but they basically pushed they pushed it against one of the teams. You look at they obviously demolished Arizona, who beat us by only a little bit, but this UConn team could have failed a couple times throughout a lot of the year, and this team had heart. They battled, and I don't like Michigan, but gotta give them flowers. They were the better team. They were the better team a lot of the tournament. Knew for a fact we had our hands full as underdogs, but it seems like our magical, fun season is going to be coming to an end. So, congratulations to Michigan, and it'll be our first national champ. I think Hurley will go to 6-1 on national championship games, which is still insanity. It really took essentially a generational type of Michigan team that had 5 transfers in their starting 5 to pull it off. But the women, obviously, they ran into South Carolina, of course, who they beat last year in the championship, and I think South Carolina won a lot of revenge. And the woman just didn't make shots. Sarah Strong was very, very ineffective, 4 of 16 from the field. They found a way to just really disrupt her overall game. So it's been rough, but, as a Huskies fan, they're always a team that's going to fight and battle until the end. So just watching the last whatever, and, just it's what it is. So
and again, folks, we are proud to welcome a new member to the ETB family of hosts, our good man Nate Miller joining us again. You'll see Nate on some of our content with his own content coming down the pipeline. But Nate, welcome to the lounge, and more importantly, my friend, a warm welcome to the ETB family, my man. How's it going tonight?
Welcome.
It's going well, man. As a proud Michigan State Spartan, this national championship is paining me almost as much as it is Ben over here. Watching Michigan win is never fun. I hate it. But they're a good team, man. They were one of the more dominant tournament runs I've ever seen. This is going to be the first game they didn't put up 90+ against someone, which is just absolutely unreal. I thought they had a shot against Arizona. I didn't think they had that in them, what they pulled off on Saturday night. But that's how it goes sometimes, man. We're no longer going to be the last Big Ten team to win the Natty, unfortunately, until next year. Then we're going to get it back.
I feel like I've heard wait till next year too many times in my life when it's come to San Diego sports. Regardless of that, though, folks, let's remind you, though, real quick, again, you can follow the show and the network across your favorite social platforms, Twitter, IG, and TikTok, all at the ETB Lounge, and, of course, at ETB Network. And more importantly, go and subscribe to us over at youtube.com/ETB Network. More importantly, if you're joining us live, chime in, sound off. Where are you watching us from? Anything you want to get off your chest, questions, comments, or concerns, we'll take all your thoughts as we progress through the day. More importantly, like and subscribe and join us again at youtube.com/ETB Network. And also, one more piece of business, though, as we said, though, as well, we are again, folks, morphing our lounge coverage from 2 shows to 1. That will start next Sunday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And then beginning on April 19th, we will be shifting to a 5 to 8 p.m. perfect happy hour time on the West Coast, 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 11 Eastern for a full 3 hours. Myself and Nick DiMartino will be running the bar for those 3 hours come the next couple of weeks. So we're, again, in a way, consolidating the program, though, but still bringing you all the best, though, with sports and some sports comedy beginning on Sunday. So, again, we're grateful to have you folks here joining us today. With that, guys, we'll get to our round of takes and get to the biggest win on tap for the weekend. We'll start, guys, in Phoenix, Arizona. The UCLA women's basketball team, believe it or not, wins their first NCAA national championship as they also end the South Carolina Gamecocks perfect season in with a 28-point blowout, with Gabriela Arquez and Lauren Betts owning the paint, securing the program's first NCAA title. Tom, I think we were all very surprised at this game because of, I think, how the Final Four played out, though. But UCLA, though, man, literally taking the Gamecocks to the woodshed, though. So, Tom, was this UCLA's arrival game as the new center of the basketball world, or a one-game collapse, though, by a Don Stanley ball club that we've not really seen, though, Tom, in quite a long time here, the past couple of seasons?
And, Callan, I'm wondering the exact same question that I think you were just implying right there. Did the Gamecocks come into this game with UCLA, with the Bruins, a little too cocky? Did they come in expecting that they were going to win and that, if they were able to get past UConn, which they did, then they'd probably have an easier matchup in the championship? I don't want to assume that, because I just want to assume that, UCLA, for being a number 1 seed, and I'm going to refer to this when we talk about the men's tournament as well. Just because you're a number 1 seed doesn't mean you are going to be the be-all and end-all. Just because you are a number 1 seed, you have an expectation that you're going to play at a certain level. But we have seen teams who are number 1 seeds that just completely fail as number 1s. But yeah, but I will admit, I thought whoever won that game between the South Carolina Gamecocks and UConn Huskies was going to be the women's national champion. I thought you had UConn and South Carolina, two powerhouses in the women's March Madness world, women's college basketball world, playing in a semifinal for March Madness, and then going in taking on UCLA and Texas, who played a close competitive game. But ultimately, I thought, okay, it's just going to be, one of those things where I don't want to say it's a blowout, but it's a pretty distant kind of game. And yeah, it was a pretty distant game. And then it became blowout, and it was in favor of UCLA. So I don't know. I'm still dealing with the shock of that.
I think we all are, though, dealing with that shock, though, in some way, Tom, as you were pointing out again, UCLA winning their first NCAA women's basketball national title in a very much, I think, shocking game, though, over South Carolina. And Ben, obviously, I think the last couple of years we've had all four number ones, it feels like, get to the Final Four for women's hoops for the past couple of years, though. And I think, though, it was more of a shock, I think, because UCLA, I think, kind of came out of nowhere, I'd say, over the last couple of years. Like, people knew about Lauren Betts and Gabriella Jarquez and Kiki Rice and other players on the team. But I don't think, though, Ben, that they were expecting UCLA to roll South Carolina. But I thought, though, that the only way that they were going to win any of the games against a UConn or a Texas or a South Carolina or an LSU was that they had a size advantage, though, with Betts and their other, big players in the post, though. So, Ben, your thoughts, though, does UCLA now, in a way, kind of become that new team with the target on their back, though, or was that a mere one-game falter and collapse, though, by a Don Stanley ball club where, again, they've, in a way, though, Ben, it feels like, though, they've been able to get to that game on numerous occasions, though, but there's just that one team, though, that seems to put up a brick wall and stop them.
Yeah, no, I mean, UCLA had a lot of size. South Carolina does too, but it seemed like they used a lot of their energy against UConn, which deservedly they should have. UCLA just had length left and right, and they just ran into a better team. I think that's really just kind of what it came down to.
And with that in mind, Nate, I guess.
Oh my God, it's a 4-point game now.
The beauty of doing things live when there's still a game in progress right now. But I guess, though, Nate.
I just turned the game off. What?
Tom, you never leave a game early and you never turn a game off.
Down, and then we banked into 3.
But I guess, though, Nate, for your thoughts here again, UCLA winning their first officially recognized. I think that might be a little bit lost in the shuffle here that they did win a national title while Ann Myers-Drysdale was at UCLA, but that was, I think, before it became, the whole NCAA ordeal, though. But, Nate, I guess your thoughts, though, more about UCLA, or is this kind of a one-game, blip on the radar for South Carolina going into next season?
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting concept to me. I mean, first, I was surprised to learn that it was UCLA's first national title in the women's department. I had assumed just because of how rich of a basketball school they were that they had won before. So it was very surprising when I learned not only was that their first national championship, but their first Final Four was only like 3 years ago, which was that was crazy to me that UCLA kind of being in this mix was more like newfound. And it also kind of stood out to me to learn that South Carolina is now the first team, I think both men's and women's NCAA tournament history to lose back-to-back national championships by 20 plus. Because they lost to UConn, was it last year, by 20? And It was just, I think that might be, I don't know how telling you can say that is about South Carolina in big moments, because obviously they're getting to these games and it is very hard to perform at the level that they do to get here. But the fact that they've lost back-to-back national championships by 20 points was it was very interesting to me. And I don't know what exactly that tells us about South Carolina. Is it just bad luck? Are they not preparing themselves very well after these Final Four matchups going into the national championships? I'm not sure, but I was very intrigued whenever I read that.
And I think I'm just more startled again. I think all of us in a roundabout way are that way, where South Carolina again wins that game handily over UConn. In a way, it's revenge tour. They get the revenge over UConn for beating them in the national title game last year. Then they come out though, and in this game they'll lay a massive egg though. It's just very much perplexing. But regardless though, major props by the way, guys. And I think we should say this though. Corey Close deserves all the flowers in the world though. She took over this program, I believe, back in 2011 when they were still in the Pac-12, and has built this team though for the last 15 seasons. Trying to get, from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, though, and it finally pays off, though, with what, of course, they had, though, between Betts and Jaquez and Rice and all of in that talent, though, again, building off last season. So, again, massive congratulations to Corey Close and the UCLA Bruins for their first official national championship game and victory in women's basketball history. Gentlemen, some flat beer goes to the LA Lakers after a very rugged last couple of games. Luka Dončić and Austin Reaves both now land on the injury report as Dončić suffered a grade 2 hamstring strain, while Austin Reaves has a oblique strain, and both are out indefinitely and might be out until the first round of the postseason at this rate. And at this rate, though, J.J. Redick's team is now stumbling into the play-in round with a very much skeleton crew of players now at their disposal, including, though, getting lit up like a Christmas tree by the Oklahoma City Thunder over the last couple of games. With that in mind, Ben, if we can maybe perhaps get some quick thoughts, though, here on this with the Lakers, now with Luka and Reaves both out. Could this perhaps, though, Ben, in your mind, be the first time, though, we've seen a LeBron-led team of any franchise become a virtual, actual underdog come a play-in tournament scenario in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, I mean, because they have Luka, who's been playing legitimately probably as the best offensive player, for weeks. Got hurt, unfortunately, and then Austin Reaves got hurt. Of course, probably their second guy. LeBron really, they really weren't obviously banking on LeBron to be LeBron. Of course, he's getting older, so they obviously for him, they wanted to, do what they can to get in. Obviously, I do think if Luka comes back, of course, they think they have a shot, but he's coming back from a pretty big injury, so we'll see in terms of what happens. And LeBron, obviously, I think is going to have to just take a bigger toll, if he's out, and at his age, it's going to be tough. But if anybody could do it, it's him, because he obviously has the experience. So we'll see what happens.
Nate, as it stands right now, the Lakers are 50-game winners, and they already have another division title wrapped up. But if the playoffs began today, though, Nate, they're facing their kryptonite in the postseason in the form of the Minnesota Timberwolves for, I think, the second or third time in 4 years. And the Wolves have had their number the last several years, though, come playoff time, where I think that the toll of the season catches as caught up to the Lakers the last several seasons, especially when you've got OKC 1, you've got the Spurs 2. That is very much a difficult gauntlet to get through if you're going to get to the out of the play-in tournament or even get through the actual first round of the postseason, though. But though, Nate, where though would the panic meter be though for Laker fans out there with the simple fact though that Luka, number 2 guy, maybe 1A, 1B for scoring, Austin Reaves again, proven 3-point shooter and specialist. Both guys being out, though, at this stage of the year, though, is that a level of concern, though, for the Lakers, in your opinion?
I think it's a pretty high level of concern for the Lakers, but it doesn't kick in really until once they actually get in to the playoffs. I'm pretty sure I read today that they can finish anywhere between the 3 and the 6 seed. So I don't believe mathematically they can fall down into the play-in at this point, which helps them a lot, because I think it would just be 4-game sweep in this scenario if they had to face either San Antonio or Oklahoma City this early. But especially with the Timberwolves, I mean, they're a team that just kind of seems to hover in the middle throughout the regular season, and then we get to playoff time and Anthony Edwards and crew just kick it into another gear. I mean, their Western Conference Finals 2 years ago, they put on a really good performance in the playoffs last year as well. I think there is reason to panic, but also, we saw LeBron, I know it was LeBron almost a decade ago at this point with his 2018 team, will them to the finals. I think he might be able to find a gear to win them some games in that Minnesota series that maybe they shouldn't without Reaves and Luka being there, but I don't think necessarily that Lakers fans should exactly be hopeful for any kind of big run. Maybe if you can find a way to get Luka back or Reaves back, maybe in a game 5 through 7 of that series, I think you would be able to consider yourselves lucky. I don't think their injuries will allow for that necessarily, but I definitely say the panic meter is beeping right now. And it's rough because there was also that whole thing with what Reaves's doctor like scanned the wrong part of his body the first time they were looking for his injury. Like that just can't happen. Like if they catch that earlier, you might be able to have Reaves back for this entirety of the playoffs series.
With that in mind, folks, quick breaking news. Just gone final in Indianapolis. The Michigan Wolverines have won the national championship. We'll have more about that coming up a bit later in the show. 69-63, Michigan is your national champions in men's college basketball over UConn for this season. But, Tom, getting back on track, though, here, and I think, Tom, that the four of us here, though, would agree, though, as I think all four of us perhaps being hockey fans or sports fans, very well, though, that when you get to this part of the year, though, I think you kind of get a little bit nervous or stressed, though, when you hear that there's big name players on your team or in general that begin to drop like flies when it does, though, come to injury woes, sadly, at this rate. And, this, I think, though, Nick or Tom, is a bit of a concern, though, for the simple, small fact, though, hey, you've already won 50 games. You're already got a division title locked up. But as Nate, though, greatly said, though, you could fall, though, if you start perhaps, to drift away here a bit. You go from 3 down to 6, maybe down to anywhere closer to that. You get a little bit concerned, though. But I guess, though, Tom, with both Dončić and Reaves now being out, your thoughts on level of concern when it comes to the Lakers right now as we go to their home stretch of the season?
And on the note that you and Nate were talking about, Callan, about potential seeding, the other thing to note about the Western Conference is the playoff teams, if you're going to include the play-in tournament, are technically all determined. Grizzlies, Mavs, Pelicans, Kings, and Jazz are out of it completely. But when you look at the seeding, it's wide open at this point. You've got the Lakers, who Nate mentioned could fall anywhere between 3 and 6. The Nuggets are tied with the Lakers in record, and I'm only going to assume with the injuries and the downward slope that the Lakers are on, the Lakers are probably going to fall to the 4, if not the 5, because then you also have the Houston Rockets, who are only at 49 and 29. They're only a game back. So it is a wide open field. And as you guys mentioned, I don't feel good about them going up against the Timberwolves, but you know what? I don't feel good about them going up against Nuggets either. Nuggets who won a championship just a couple of years ago. Nuggets that have been constantly a powerhouse team the last 4 or 5 years in the Western Conference.
And not just that, Tom, it's so tough to win, though, in Denver because of the elevation, believe it or not. That is a thing, believe it or not, folks.
Yeah, and you got to, and the thing is, with the Lakers, and people have talked about this all season. We've seen it all season. LeBron, for as much as we talk about LeBron is the back seat. LeBron's the one who's basically on the side. This has become Luka Dončić's team. And now Luka's hurt. And I don't know if I'm just reading social media, reading the lovely, I say that with all sarcasm, platform known as X. I mean, what is true and what is not. Are there rumors that Luka is going to go somewhere, aka to another country where stem cell surgery and research is all good for his injury?
Oh, who knows?
If that happens, honestly, goodbye playoffs. He's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And if that happens, there goes the Lakers' best star. And there was always a long-running joke for years. There was a long-running joke from years when the early days of the podcast, pre-ETB with myself and Nick Morgeson, that LeBron is one of those where, it's playoff mode. He's a Brady. He's a Mahomes. You throw wrestling in there. He's a Cena. He's a Hogan. That all of a sudden, they become the unstoppable force. Not so much the last few years. Lakers were a first-round exit a couple of years ago. The Lakers, I think before Luka even got there, had missed the playoffs at one point with LeBron on their team. LeBron is an aging star, and can he still pull off, magnificent performances? Absolutely.
Definitely.
but the league don't revolve around him anymore. And the league, one could argue, has passed him by. He can still hang. He's not 2011 LeBron. He's not 2016 LeBron. He's not 2007 LeBron, 2003 LeBron. So
bubble LeBron in 2020.
He's not bubble LeBron. Yeah. At this point, I look at these potential matchups, let's say the Lakers end up, actually, no, they're not going to, at the rate they're going, they're not going to face anybody in the play-in tournament if I'm talking about them potentially moving down. So I look at those three, like I mentioned, Nuggets, Rockets, Timberwolves. Maybe the Rockets, their best matchup of those.
I was going to say, if I had to pick, I'd go Houston 1, and then after that, I'd be terrified because the Lakers can never seem to win in Denver, as I already said about the elevation and the crowd there. And for some damn reason, the Wolves are always a thorn in their side too, as I think they were last season. So it's either Houston or you got the pick of the litter, and the pick of the litter right now is not in your favor.
Yeah, no, I mean, Timberwolves have been hot the last few postseasons. Nuggets, like I said, I wouldn't count on doing well against them, Jokic and all that. Rockets, I mean, they've got KD, and the Rockets just have a history of, with the exception of the 90s, they have a history
with the exception of Olajuwon and Ori and the Clutch City 96, 97 era Rockets. These aren't the Yao Ming, Louis Scola era Rockets back in the day or the T-Mac days,
Yeah, but even as, Nate said, let's say the Lakers somehow get lucky, LeBron has some energy in them, and they end up doing a 7-game, survival mode. They go up against the Thunder or the Spurs, it's going to be an absolute blowout. It's going to be a sweep.
And if that's the case, the Thunder literally, I think, were up by 42 at one point in that last game they played. I think the game that Luka got injured. But again, we'll keep an eye on how the NBA postseason shakes out with about a week or so left in the regular season. Guys, more importantly, again, and this was obviously, I think, a very much a negative talking point from the Final Four for women's hoops over the past couple days. But of course, the sports world was still reeling from the Final Four handshake that never was, following South Carolina's beating an upset of number 1 in unbeaten UConn on Friday. Gino Auriemma seemed to confront South Carolina head coach Don Staley at the scores table with only 0.1 seconds left. The exchange turned into a heated shouting match, with Gino citing handshake protocol and physicality while Don stood her ground, and later telling ESPN, "I am of integrity." Gino since walked back his comments for the following day and apologized via the UConn social media accounts for the women's basketball team. But Nate Miller, is Gino's handshake protocol complaint a legitimate gripe about coaching etiquette, or a classic case of a all-time great being a sore loser after his team had their 54-game win streak snapped in the desert on Friday?
I bet you could take a grain of salt with it. I bet you if that's a regular season game that they lose and that same thing happens, he might not make as big of a stink about it, given the what's the word I'm looking for? Given the stakes of the matchup. Like, I bet, maybe he has some words after whatever, I wish you would have, had better etiquette at the time. But I think just emotions boiled over and blew it so much more out of proportion than it needed to be. Take it from someone who also has a short temper and will let things like that happen. I've been in a position like that where I've lost and I've just felt like a poor sport at the time. And I've had my emotions at an all-time high, because that's what you have to think about too. His emotions throughout that entire game are 100, 100, 100, 100. He is upset. So do I think it was warranted to be as big of a stink as it needed to be? No. But do I think if that happens in a different circumstance, it just leads to a more civil conversation about, hey, I didn't appreciate how you handled this, just as civil as coaches do? Probably. But just given the stakes, he blew it so much more out of proportion than it needed to be.
Tom, I've been wondering about this segment all day, including during my lengthy softball game today that I did at the University of San Diego today. Is why do I kind of feel like, though, this whole thing only blows up, Tom, not because of Gino's attitude or how Dawn clapped back and, what she said, though, to ESPN. But in a weird way, though, Tom, I've been wondering, though, if this could be compared, though, to how Gino and Pat Summitt operated with their rivalry back when UConn, Tennessee was kind of becoming of age in the late 90s, early 2000s, where, again, it was UConn, Tennessee exchanging championship victories over the course of that time, and how Gino obviously broke down when Pat passed away in that first game when they played each other. Without Pat there, he told the media after the game, I miss her. Like, coaching against Tennessee is not the same without Pat on that sideline. So why do I kind of feel like now, though, Tom, that the new way to bring people into the women's basketball world, though, where it's been, blossoming because of the Callan McClurg effect and her and Angel Reese, Paige Becker, go down the line, that now it's like Gino needs to find a new, not villain, like a new person, like, hold my hand. We got to keep doing what we're doing here with women's basketball. But, Tom, is this something or is this nothing, though, coming out of the Final Four in Phoenix?
I guess it was something, but hopefully something that at this point, and it seems like Dawn has accepted the apology, by the way, so it looks like maybe something that's just going to get swept. I don't know if the word swept under the rug is the right term here, but everyone's going to move on. And as far as what you were saying, Callan, I mean, I think the comparison is kind of okay with that. I'm kind of okay with that because, like I said earlier, at this point, if you're talking about powerhouses within women's basketball on the college level, South Carolina and UConn is it. On one hand, I want to say with Gino's actions, I mean emotion, passion, legendary coach, and somebody who's just, really fired up and just saw his team lose in a devastating, heartbreaking fashion. You want to understand that. But on the other hand, two words, time and place. You are a legendary coach. You are somebody who these ladies look up to. You are somebody who a whole fan base looks up to. And you got to have, if you're going to be seen as like the role model, you got to have the, wherewithal and the control in order to, give off the impression of how to lose with dignity and how to lose with grace. And I think there's a way where you do the handshake and you say something like, can we have a discussion later? Or say, hey, I want to talk about this later while you guys are doing the handshake. So that way, you get your business off your chest, but at the same rate, you don't stop anything. You don't show with the, show off or have an outburst with the cameras all there. Everyone's going to take notice, especially when you are a legendary figure in the sports world like Gino is.
So we saved the best for last, though, involving a UConn basketball story, though we have one more to get through here, though, after this one ends, though. But, of course, Ben Kruse, longtime UConn fan. Mm-hmm. Obviously, though, Ben, like I kind of said, though, in a roundabout way, weirdly enough, again, kind of comparing the Gino-Pat era, though, where, again, they had their own rivalry, though, with how their philosophies were and how they went about their business. Now, almost modern day now, Gino and Don having, this spat over the course of the game. Now, I kind of was out of the loop, though, when this happened, because I think I was at work when this happened. Yeah. And I just know that Gino had chewed out the referees on the ESPN interview, though, saying, hey, it's a 6-0 foul count, but we got to play better. Mm-hmm. But also, though, Ben, I wonder, though, like I said, though, I just wonder mainly more than anything else, though, is this something? Is this nothing? Is it this? Is it that? Again, I'm not really 100% sure, because I think, though, eventually, though, Ben, this feels more of a moment that I think we all would agree, though, was simply a moment in time during the heat of a potential championship victory for either of these teams. Again, it's a Final Four game. Of course, you're going to be, turned up to 11, or you're going to be super, over the top of things, though. And I think, though, that in a way, I think both Gino and Don went poorly about how they, conducted themselves, though. I agree, though, about them apologizing in roundabout ways, whether it was through the UConn social media accounts or even the press, though. So I think, though, they felt like we kind of like Tom said, though, we kind of let a lot of people down, though, from our university, whatever it might be, though. But, Ben, was this something or was this nothing, though, from the weekend, though, involving Gino and Don Staley?
I think there was a little bit of something. I do think they're both obviously extremely, highly regarded as two of the best coaches in women's college basketball. And so I think also with the way I think last year, of course, happened with South Carolina in terms of them getting absolutely just dominated. And I think, for Gino's case, they were on a 54-game winning streak. Reportedly, Gino was saying after the game was over that they usually shake hands before the game. Apparently, speaking enough, apparently that didn't maybe happen. So maybe there was kind of maybe something after the fact, and then they were trying to shake hands after, and then maybe it just kind of got out of whack a little bit after the fact because, Gino, of course, left, and they didn't even shake hands, and they tried to go back and do it. So, I don't know. I mean, I think, they have a lot of, respect. Dawn Staley, I think, is somebody I respect a lot for. And, she's obviously, to me, I think, because UConn, of course, was the standard, at least for women's basketball for decades and decades, just steamrolling team after teams. And as great as it was, for me as a fan, I just thought they needed to hopefully get some competition coming around in the last several years. They obviously with UCLA, who obviously won it this year, South Carolina, Tennessee, a lot of teams. So I think, just that overall, a lot of, Staley, was saying too before, they beat us on Friday. She said, UConn is, with a lot of their teams that they've had in the past, that's the overall standard that we are trying to get to. And, to pull that off, 54 games, it was probably tough on Gino, because Gino is probably sitting there like, hey, we just won 54 games. And now it's like, well, we lost. And, I think, a lot of people were just kind of thinking that they were going to just keep doing it again. And I think, I don't know what the betting odds were for the UConn women to win the championship, but I think for the women's side of things, it was probably pretty high. Got to just, I think really there could be something there, Cal. I think personally, I think it's more just of a competitiveness. And I think there's just kind of a little bit of like out of proportions in a way, it's just kind of like just heat of the moment.
Ben, I'm glad you said that, though, before we move on here to get to the recap of the men's national title game that literally just went final about 5 minutes ago, again, with Michigan beating UConn 69-63 from Indianapolis, though. But Ben, I'm glad you said that, though, in a way, because I feel like, though, fellows, and I think we all could agree, though, in some way, especially and I've been a big believer in this, though, but I think where women's basketball is finally going, professionally, collegiately, and the rise of, like Iowa for a bit there and LSU and, you had Tennessee, UConn, but, again, the parity of the game now being where it is going to UCLA wins their first natty ever in program history at the NCAA level, as opposed to the Ann Myers era one that was won. That, in a way, I think that, sadly, a lot of people judge the women's version of sports so differently because, well, you can't act tough or you can't act like this or show your emotions in a way. It's a lot like, the gatekeeping in Major League Baseball about, you can't celebrate a home run or a great play. That, if women or female athletes act like this or something like this breaks out, it's bad for the game, or it becomes, tabloid headlines about, he said, she said, they said. Or again, like Ben said, it's the competitive nature and the environment of the game, though. You're playing for a chance to go to play for a national championship. That day doesn't come around very often. I don't care if it's UConn or if it's, a D3 program in the middle of nowhere, for example. That day doesn't come around all the time to play for a national championship on that big stage, though, at, in Phoenix or in Atlanta or wherever the next rounds are going to be or whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, it's sports in general, and that's just kind of where things have been, though, at this rate. But again, major thank you to everyone joining us again, nearing 400 live viewers. If you're liking what we're doing here again, hit that subscribe button over at youtube.com/ETB Network, and we'll keep going here, guys. With that, big story now coming across the receipts here, guys. As mentioned, it has just gone final. The Michigan Wolverines, again, have captured the men's national title this year with a 69-63 victory over the 2-seed UConn Huskies. They led 33-29, though, at halftime, and then put up 36 points in the second half of play tonight for the Michigan Wolverines, who, again, have won their first national title since the days of the Fab Five, with over 70,000 people in attendance today at Lucas Oil Stadium in downtown Indianapolis. Tom, your instant reaction to I think, a classic from Indy this evening.
Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to do something quickly with the phone. I kind of said it yesterday when Nick DiMartino, Ben, and I were making our predictions for what the national champion, and Ray, don't forget about Ray, our predictions for the national championship game. And we talked about the 7.5, or I think it was 6.5 at the time.
I think it was 6. I think it jumped to 7. I think
it went from 7 to 6, and then to 7, and a half, and a half, and a half.
The half's
There
important.
you go.
Half-point cover, yeah. But that was going to be the point that I was going to go to, was that, when I was sitting there with Ben and Nick, it basically was, hey, I want to give UConn this kind of opportunity, but they expected Michigan to blow them out. And my response was, I don't know. I get made fun of a little bit, especially during forecast when that's in season, the thumbs middle play, where I'm like, I expect whoever's the favorite to win. But the covering, I'm going to expect, the underdog to put up a fight.
Yeah.
That's what I expected here. And guess what? UConn absolutely did. When you make history, and I can talk about, and I talked about last week on both editions of Lounge last week about just how bad of a 1 seed, a fraud of a 1 seed Duke was.
Mm-hmm.
When you make the kind of history, becoming the first team to play a number 1 seed, be down 19 points, I think, or so that they were, about 15 plus, and to make that kind of comeback, that shows you the heart of that team. That shows you the kind of coaching that Dan Hurley has set into his program. And that just shows you how great of a coach Dan Hurley is and how great of a team that he's got and has built over at UConn. That being said, we spent last week when Duke lost to UConn, and I preached about just again how much of a fraud Duke was as a number 1 seed, the way they almost lost to Siena, the way they almost lost to St. John's, how they lost to UConn, and their only good win where they looked like a dominant 1 seed was against TCU in the round of 32. Michigan was the definition of a number 1 seed. Michigan showed why they are the most dominating program right now. And the funny thing is, the Big Ten tournament, it was so enthralling. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't win the Big Ten tournament.
No,
They did not.
Purdue won it, I think.
They actually ended up falling short to Purdue in the championship. So that just goes to show you, just because, the conference tournaments don't tell you everything. They don't tell you the whole story, especially a program like Michigan. And you know what? We can have our questions about, Duke, or did they deserve a 1 seed? We can have our questions about St. John's being ranked a 5 instead of a 3. But sometimes, guys, these experts get it right. And with Michigan, yeah, they got ranked higher than Purdue, but they got it right. Because Michigan, every game that they played was a dominating blowout up until playing UConn in the championship. Even when they were in the Final Four, in the semifinals, playing another number 1 seed in Arizona, who a lot of people expected to hoist up the trophy tonight. Michigan hit the floor with them. Arizona fought back, but they got beat up so early. It was too little too late, even in the first half.
Nate, I think that this Michigan team was scary because I recall them playing, I believe, in the Players Era tournament Thanksgiving week in Vegas. They happened to play San Diego State and Gonzaga. They beat SDSU, I think, by 30. Then they spanked Gonzaga by 40. Like, that should have been a bit of like a wake-up call for me, like, hey, this Michigan team's pretty damn legit, though, and what Dusty May's built there. Now there's been some spattering of talk from front office sports about, he might entertain an NBA coaching job. I don't think he does that now because of what he's built there, especially this season, though. But, Nate, I guess reaction, but more importantly, was this maybe perhaps the most dominant one seed run that we've seen, though, in recent years, though, in men's college hoops?
It was ridiculous to watch. As someone who was watching the entire tournament, hoping that every Michigan game was going to be the last Michigan game of the tournament, it was shocking. I mean, I said it. I don't know if I said this when we were talking a little bit before the show or if we were on the show when I said this, but it was one of the most dominant runs I had ever seen. I didn't expect them to go out and play Arizona.
I think that was before.
Yeah, it was a little bit before. I didn't go out and expect them even to compete with Arizona that much. Like when I said on my most recent episode of Give and Takes was the fact that I had the total opposite script of what was going to happen in that game. I thought Arizona was going to be the team that came out early, beat down on Michigan, and then Michigan would kind of settle into the tempo, and then it would just be a too little, too late scenario. Because in my eyes, up until the Final Four, they played no one that was a 3 seed or higher. Like their highest seeded team that they played was the 4 seeded Crimson Tide, who they can shoot lights out, but I don't think they teach defense in Alabama. They just only teach them how to shoot the 3. That's their entire game plan. So throughout this entire thing, and this was the first game of the tournament, they didn't put up 90 points. I mean, they were scoring at an insane rate. They were winning all of these games by double digits. They were holding down their opponents, and it was just shocking. I mean, Mara, Cadeau, Lendenborg, they were all just absolutely unreal the entire tournament. Even when Yaxel got hurt early against Arizona in the Final Four game, in my eyes, I thought, I can't say with 100% positivity whether or not he returned in that game, but when I'm watching that, I'm like, he looks hurt. He did he got the towel over the head walking into the tunnel. That's usually a sign that a guy's done, especially at this stage of the tournament. But he came out today. I'm pretty sure he had more minutes than any other Michigan player in this game today. And it was just sheer willpower, great coaching by Dusty May, who I remember his FAU run back in 2023, and I broke my heart when I saw he was going to the enemy. But it truly was a dominant run. And like you said, that Gonzaga win that they had, I think was the first real eye opener of, oh, okay, Michigan's got a real team this year. And every time, like, I can't remember how many regular season losses they had, but after they lost to Wisconsin at home, I think it was 91-88. I think it was a 3-point win for Wisconsin. I thought, all right, this is where the wheels fall off. They've shown where their weaknesses are. Other teams are going to be able to play off of this. And then they lost to Duke and I think Purdue after that. And those were the 3 times they lost this year: Wisconsin, Duke, and Purdue. So it pains me to say it, but they were the best team in this tournament. I think outside, if Iowa didn't have that majestic win against Florida in the South region, I think Florida could have ran and potentially met them in the national championship. And I think I would have taken Florida over them, but alas, they were a second round exit. So I don't want to say that they were the best 1 seed going into it, but after it's all said and done, it's easy to say because they won the tournament, but they surely looked the part of a 1 seed. And just, it looked like, even in this game against UConn, every time either it looked like Michigan was like maybe letting UConn in, like leaving the door open a little bit, they didn't. They would extend it to like a 10-point lead. They'd let them back in, make it a 6 or 7 point game, something like that. And then they just never let up against a coach in Dan Hurley, who this is his first time he's ever lost past the Sweet 16. So it was majestic work by Michigan. And it is really hard for me to give them any kind of praise. I feel sick doing that right now.
Where's the puke bucket at?
It's off to the side right here. It is on standby. It's bad, man. I think I'm gonna have, like, the first time I open social media after this is done and it's just flooded with Michigan winning national championship. Like, this might be my break from social media. Like, I might have to delete all social media just to run away.
The one thing you have to do is when your team loses in the playoffs is brace yourself. It is the worst kind of feeling. 2 things in response to what Nate said. One, reason I made the boo-boo face when he mentioned Alabama is I brought back bad memories of, hoping that Hofstra was going to pull off a first-round upset. Actually, I was dead on hoping it was going to be Hofstra VCU in the second round.
Hofstra too to pull off the upset.
I also had Hofstra pulling off that up. It seemed like an upset that the 4 seed won based off of how many people picked Hofstra.
Nate and Callan.
And yet, I was the only guy in the ETB ESPN Tournament Challenge group to pick High Point to beat Wisconsin.
I have Wisconsin in the Final Four, so my bracket was busted after 4 games, and I was just like, maybe next year.
So, guys,
I usually have
I actually, when you were talking about Hofstra pulling off an upset, I actually had Hofstra and VCU both pulling off upsets, and then Hofstra beating them in the second round. I had Hofstra in the Sweet 16.
Or I think they would have ran into Akron up there. I think VCU was the other side of the bracket.
Well, as far as the other point, though, that I want to, you mentioned Florida, Nate, when we're talking about comparison of one seeds. I think Florida, and I again said this with Nick DiMartino last week, I think Florida just it got put in the region that was just really tough because he had Houston right behind them as a 2 seed, who I thought Houston was going to go to the national title game because they were going to have the fire under them. They lost in such a heartbreaking fashion last year that they were going to be able to get back there again. And then right behind them, we're talking about Final Fours, Illinois, who ended up making the Final Four. And they and UConn met once again, and they and UConn again put on another classic where it was back and forth. So I think Florida just, we talk about one seeds. I think, you can say it's a bit of a fail. But number one, like I said, they got put in, I think, the toughest of the brackets of the 4 different regions. And number two, to be very honest with you, I'd still say Duke was a worse 1 seed than Florida, simply for the matter of, like I mentioned, I don't think Duke played as a 1 seed well in any of their games except the TCU game.
I wouldn't say that the South was I was going to say, I don't think the South was the toughest region in the March Madness tournament. That Eastern region was absolutely brutal. You had UCLA, UConn, Michigan State, Kansas, St. John's, Duke. I mean, that
okay,
was
let me correct it.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, okay, you had the gauntlet. Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, that's fair.
Group of death, as we call it in soccer.
But I still think, saying that Florida was the absolute worst, that was the worst of the 4 1 seeds, I think kind of discredits, again, what I think has been a massive fraud check for Duke in this tournament. You can then mention Duke's injuries, but when you are a 1 seed, you are supposed to play like a 1 seed. And I think you could have and I think in terms of the region that Florida was in, I think you could have made a quick case for somebody like, hey, Chrissy, somebody like Houston being the one. And I think if Florida was matched up with Houston or Illinois, it was going to be a tough battle. But, for the storyline for the March Madness, just briefly about lack of upsets, I mean, yes, maybe in comparison to past years, and yes, maybe you could talk about NIL and transfer portal and everything, but who Florida lost to, wasn't it Iowa?
Yeah.
Weren't they the star star Cinderella, if you will, of the tournament?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I think Iowa was a Cinderella. I had this debate at length with a lot of my friends a while ago, but even though they were a powerhouse team, being a 9 seed and having the path that they had to the Elite 8, I think you would definitely be able to classify Iowa as the Cinderella of this tournament.
Nate, in my feeling, if you are in the second half of the region, the 9 to 16, you are a Cinderella.
Exactly.
Nobody expects you're going to get past the first round.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was Iowa over Florida was either the most or second most shocking upset victory, in my opinion. Only rivaled by, and I know the seeding will make this a little bit like, was it really this shocking? But I had no faith in Illinois beating Houston. Illinois beating Houston was almost as shocking to me as Iowa beating Florida. And I know the seeding discrepancy isn't as much, but Houston just seemed like they had no weaknesses. I know they lost to Arizona in the Big 12 championship, I'm fairly certain. But outside of that, it looked like it was almost Houston's region to lose, even though they had to go up against Florida, hypothetically, if all the favorites had won in order to take it home.
Definitely. With that in mind, though, Ben, obviously so close yet so far for UConn. But first, and I wondered, I don't think I got to ask you this last week though, Ben. But I'll ask you this question after you give your thoughts though on the game. But obviously, UConn gets back there to the national title game again, coming off, probably I think a remarkable run though. Obviously, the comeback to beat Duke though was, still, is obviously a big moment though. But I guess Ben, overall takeaways from tonight's game though from Indianapolis.
Yeah. First couple of things before I get into the overall, just outlook. First of all, and Nate, I mean, I definitely read the same thing with Nate. As an Ohio State football fan myself, so not only I don't like him and I just don't like their program, but I respect the hell of them. Congratulations to Michigan on winning the March Madness tournament. They I think were the best team. They reminded me actually of UConn from 2024 when we won on the back-to-back year against Purdue. And just they had a little more size. They had a very, very good coach. And just playing from behind was just not going to be the recipe to beat a team like that. And in the first half, I thought that we really, really battled, but we were in foul trouble a lot, especially with their size. And that was just going to be something that was going to be really hard to do. They just UConn was going to have to really shoot the daylights out of the ball from behind the arc, and they didn't do great, but they battled. I mean, they found a way to not get blown out, which I think a lot of people are kind of interested to kind of see after the Arizona game, where Arizona, a lot of people were saying that those two teams were pretty much neck and neck in terms of their overall talent, and so I mean. UConn, the biggest thing about this team is, especially for this year, there was a lot of moments throughout this season that I could be honest, I thought they were dead. I thought they were done. But silly me, especially for being a fan of this team, to ever doubt my coach and Dan Hurley. It's obviously not the result we wanted, but I'm just getting deja vu from about a month or two ago with the Patriots losing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. But I think it's really hard to really just be upset with this UConn team because the expectations of getting there, of course, and winning, of course, was the biggest thing that they wanted, and of course, Coach wanted that. But just to find a way to, I mean, they were down 19 points in the Elite Eight. So I think a lot of people are basically saying that they were dead by then. And the fact that they were able to come back against arguably probably the best college team, at least on paper, with the Boozer twins and everybody like that, and to shock the world in that second half, I think was just a big memory that I won't forget, and just kind of an episode in terms of what this team is about, and just to basically be a heart of a champion that's obviously headlined by the standard of the overall program. And, Michigan, obviously, if they had a little bit lesser talent, who knows? I could be sitting here, going and be excited for another banner. But, it can't obviously happen every year. And, obviously, as long as Coach Froeh's around, I think this team is, of course, going to obviously be competitive year after year in March. They were like neck and neck with Furman. I remember the first game, and I'm like, I don't even know how they're going to make a deep run at all. I think they were tied or something against Furman. And then they won, and then they obviously played against UCLA. They had a good one against that. And they played Michigan State. That was a hell of a battle back and forth. And then, of course, they Illinois, and they had a really good big gauntlet of an overall run that they had. And they obviously had a couple of plays that they were short at the end, but I can't fault them. They had a hell of a year. Really proud of the boys for having this fun overall run and just having myself as a fan just watch. It's obviously, for an overall casual type of fan that really just doesn't really kind of care. They just love the tournament. But for me as a overall person that lives in the state and has really just been embodied of this program and really being actually on campus to really feel this overall feel of like actually going to a basketball camp on campus when I was little there. It's just different. I mean, they call it basketball capital of the world, and for Connecticut outsiders, you could say, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you actually kind of have to see what we're talking about because, the national championships, the overall, it's basketball and it's basketball. UConn has been one of the best blue bloods from the last 4 or 5 years. And just because they lost tonight does not discredit that at all. It's hard to just get the Final Four in itself. And to knock out Duke, I think was an awesome thing. But I will remember that. Alex Caravan too. I love you, brother. This is, of course, it could have gone up was one of the greatest players if he won tonight. Obviously, didn't happen, but the guy has a couple natties. He is one of the best. I mean, he went into the UConn Hall of Fame as well this year. He obviously has that as well. And, I think, we'll be kind of curious to see what happens next. Of course, there's going to be a lot of probably guys in the transfer portal that we'll look at. I know that Silas Demery, of course, we got this past year. He was amazing for us as a starting guard from Georgia. So Solo Ball come back for another year. Maybe as a senior. He, of course, was a big guy. Braylon Mullins, I mean, he was a freshman. This guy was amazing. Obviously, the shot that he had against Duke. So it'll be a fun, I think, run, for next year. But I think there's going to be a lot of questions. But Alex Caravan, you're going to go down, obviously, up there with probably Kemba Walker and all the greats for sure. So I can't, obviously, be upset. But, man, credit to Michigan. Screw you, but credit to you. And
I can get behind that.
There's really nothing much else I can say. Go Huskies. Love you all.
Oh, man. All right, guys, we're to the final hour already of our program. As a reminder, though, gang, we are switching things up here in the lounge coming up on Sunday, April 12th. We're going to be morphing our Saturday and Monday shows into a Sunday program starting on April 12th at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern for 3 hours now. And then starting on April 19th, we'll shift to our permanent happy hour spot of 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 11 Eastern, right back here on ETB. And again, more importantly, folks, go and find us again over at youtube.com/ETB Network. And as we try to get to that 4,000-hour watch goal as we continue to make progress. But again, youtube.com/ETB Network. Go like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you do not miss any of our content when it does, in fact, go live or does get shared. All right, gents, into hour number 2. But start, though, guys, in the NFL with the retirement of longtime NFL player Stephon Gilmore over the past couple days after a great 14-year career in the NFL. Ben, I'll go back to you. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore,
Yep.
I believe, longtime played for New England at one point, a couple of championship rings there. Ben, I guess just give us your thoughts about how you might remember Stephon Gilmore's career in the NFL.
Man, Steph was awesome. Not only just for my pads, but just around. Obviously the biggest game that, of course, I remember though was the deflection that he had in 2017 against Jacksonville. I was at my friend's house, about 20 minutes away from the stadium, and I didn't hear obviously the fans from where I was, but you honestly probably can feel it with the way that my friend's house was shaking after that play. I'm serious. It was incredible. I mean, I was going absolutely nuts. You could literally I've been to many, many past games, and obviously I've had a couple moments where like the place legit was like an earthquake the way it was shaking. But that obviously was an incredible moment. So that obviously was a big one. Of course, the 2018 Super Bowl where he picked up Jared Goff. That was kind of an underrated type of one where it's only a 13-3 win that we have the Super Bowl, but he did have a big pick in that one where we obviously had a great design blitz. He obviously undercut the route and made the pick. But also, I think a big thing about Steph is just the overall type of teammate he was. He obviously was very humble. Players loved him. He was on like a lot of the really good teams, obviously with Brady and Bill. So obviously the teams, besides the Pats he was on Dallas, Minnesota, I think he was.
Buffalo, New England, Carolina, the Colts, Dallas.
Yeah, Indianapolis for a bit.
Yeah, he was a journeyman. So, obviously I remember him as obviously a Patriot myself. I'm a little biased, but like he was really good pretty much everywhere. He was a press corner, which of course is really hard to come by for a lot in the league, at least for teams. And, I think there was obviously an opportunity, at least on Twitter at times, they're like, oh, come back. He probably could play one more year. I know he probably was thinking it, but
he probably could, honestly.
He probably could. I mean, I look at a team like the Bengals. The Bengals always seem to struggle finding corners. He could have probably went to Cincy and probably been a decent guy as like a depth piece. But
you want his final stats? I said, you want his final stats?
Sure.
All right. 617 tackles, 1 sack, 7 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 149 pass deflections, including the famous one you mentioned, Ben.
Yeah.
32 interceptions, 2 touchdowns as a defenseman, Super Bowl champion, 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time Pro Bowler, and in 2019 he was tied for the lead for interceptions in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest thing about Steph was like, so obviously the deflections. Of course, it was on par for the deflection that he had. I forgot who it was. I remember in 2017 that deflection, but he got beat late by that route from Jacksonville's receiver. I don't even remember who it was. And Bortles like made like a really good throw on it. I remember it was a corner route, and Gilmore literally was just darting, like sprinting, and it just went like boom. Like I'm going to like try to one-hand it, but instead he said, "Get out of here." And yeah, no, that was a crazy moment. But he has really good hands too. Steph had really, really good hands. He had a lot of great interceptions as well with us as well. But I really just liked him kind of more off the field. I just thought he was a very, very good teammate. And you look at a guy like Christian Gonzalez, that obviously we have now. Like I feel like kind of learned like under his wings. Like the Patriots always seem to have like a lot of awesome cornerbacks that we've had around. Of course, Ty Law, leading the way. Of course, kind of moving on. Steph obviously was up there. Darrell Reaves as well too. So Steph, I'm gonna love you. Happy retirement. And now of course you can go and be on podcasts now with James White and all the Patriots guys. Gotta do your thing, man.
By the way, Ben, the receiver that Blake Bortles was trying to find was D.D. Westbrook.
D.D. Westbrook, thank you. Yeah. I knew for a fact you would not remember that. I remember they had Leonard Fournette at running back. I do remember that. They had tight end. They had Lewis. Was it Mercedes Lewis?
Had to have been.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Because I think he had a touchdown in the game, actually, early on in the game. He had a touchdown. I think it was Lewis. I'm pretty sure.
I think it was Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah. He was
it was Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah. 2015 Bortles, yeah.
And he kind of dropped off the face of the earth, didn't he? Poor guy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. Like, I don't think he got like outed by the league. He just kind of made the AFC Championship and pieced out because they got Trevor Lawrence 3 years later.
He had me shitting bricks though at the end. I was like, no, he's not going to do this in my house. He's going to win this game.
The last time he played in the NFL was in 2021. He was a backup for the Packers and Saints.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow. Oh, jeez.
So I guess more gotten like the Andy Dalton treatment and like kind of just like been like a staple backup
passed around from team to team.
Yeah,
to team
exactly. Like I was surprised. He must have just been like, you know what, I'm good.
Or Jameis. He's actually more of a thing like a Jameis, to be honest. Like because I feel like Bortles could probably play on a team like a really bad team and probably still be decent, but he probably just didn't want to do that anymore. He's probably like, listen, like I've already done my thing. I'm probably still down in Jacksonville, probably, just living my life down there, the warm weather and whatnot. And say, listen, I'm all good.
The thing is, he doesn't have Jameis's personality, though.
No, but like, listen, not a lot of
no one does.
So,
no one does, exactly, as Nate was just going to say. But I guess, Tom's, obviously, you had to see Gilmore terrorize your football team for 3 different seasons in New England, though. But I guess, Tom, your thoughts about Stephon Gilmore's career. And I think, though, maybe the longevity, again, playing for as long as he did, though, between 2012 and 2024 before he sat out all of last season.
And you know what's funny? Stephon Gilmore only played 4 of those seasons with the New England Patriots, but he didn't have any more of a big, nowhere did he make a bigger impact than his time in New England. I don't know, and I don't know if that was because Belichick and coaching staff knew how to use him the best out of all that, or if it was just right place, right time. Because like I said, he was the Defensive Player of the Year there in 2019.
Probably right place, right time, given Belichick's track record as being a defensive guru and, his background being a coordinator for so long with the Giants.
Yeah, probably. And you consider the fact that he was part of that Super Bowl 53 winning team who had a great defense. It's kind of a shame that the end of the Brady dynasty was in that same season where he basically took off. It was phenomenal performance as a defender. 5-time Pro Bowler, He actually won his first Pro Bowl appearance when he was with Buffalo before he even got to New England. And then, like you mentioned, he bounced around a whole bunch. So, and he's part of the Patriots All Dynasty and All 2010s team. Think about it. 4 seasons in New England.
Yep.
Only 4. And he ends up with a lot of the stats that I mentioned earlier. Most of that comes from 4 years in New England. To do all of that, I shouldn't say all of that because, he still played for 21, 22, 23, 24. And as you mentioned, Callan sat out last season. But for those 4 years to put up most of that, that's incredible. Yeah. That's absolutely incredible for that kind of pace. So, Ben, my advice that I know you're going to second to give over to New England, I think you need to make some space on the Gillette Stadium Ring of Honor because I think a new name needs to be added soon.
We have a lot of them on there, so I definitely try to see what I can do.
Well, you know what? I think Stephon Gilmore is somebody who is well deserved of a space there.
Gotta be, absolutely.
He the biggest thing about Steph, I think the best way to describe him is he lets the talking do. He basically lets the talking on the field. He is a very, very, very quiet and reserved guy.
But his time in South Carolina too, per what
he was amazing at South Carolina. Yeah, was he in the same years as
I was going to say? Was he there with Jadeveon Clowney?
We all had the same question. I was about to ask if he was there with Jadeveon Clowney.
I believe he was drafted in 2012.
So I think he would have been. Yeah, maybe.
We all just asked at the same time. The same year.
No one has the answer. This is why
this show works. It's for reasons like this.
No, I believe he was the year before Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay.
Because the 2012 draft was the one where Andrew Luck and RG3 went back-to-back to start.
Stanford and Baylor.
Yep. So the top 10 for the 2012 draft. Are you ready to hear these names, guys?
2010?
2012.
2012, man.
Andrew Luck, RG3, Trent Richardson, Matt Khalil, Justin Blackmon, Morris Caliborn, Mark Barron, Ryan Tannehill, Luke Kuechly, Stephon Gilmore.
What? Wow.
Luke Kuechly, man.
I thought Justin Blackmon was going to be the next biggest team in the league. I remember.
Patrick Cox was a few picks later. Melvin Ingram was in that first round.
Clowney, though, when he got drafted, he was like the next big thing, like Brock Lesnar.
And now, Callan, and now he's like struggling to find a new team. Like
I've heard he's been like passed around like Andy Dalton and a bunch of these quarterbacks.
Actually, I think Jadeveon Clowney might have been 2014 because the 2013 draft, that's the forgettable one.
Is that
who went first that year?
That's the Eric Fisher led draft class.
What? The one that none of you NFL fans speak about, I'm guessing.
No, you don't speak about 2014. So Jadeveon Clowney was actually in the same draft class as Blake Bortles.
Ah, okay.
Where did Blake Bortles go to college?
He went to UCF.
Yeah, I was gonna say Central Florida.
Okay.
The 2017 national champions.
Now, are you ready to hear? Now, if we're gonna go on that path, are you ready to hear a really good draft class? 2014. Jadeveon Clowney. Greg Robinson, Blake Bortles, Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews, Mike Evans, Justin Gilbert, Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron, Taylor Lewan, Odell, Aaron Donald, Kyle Fuller, Ryan Shazier, Zach Morton, CJ Mosley, Calvin Pryor, Jawan James, Brandon Cooks, Glenn Dix, and then the legendary Johnny Manziel. Legendary.
That one.
That's a draft class right there, man. Those are
Teddy Bridgewater was 32. That's a draft class.
That is a draft class. Oh man! All right, Nate, your thoughts about Stephon Gilmore returning after 14 years in the NFL?
Well, the first thing it did is remind me of the fact that, and this may be some hot controversy since we got a Patriots fan in here, but that he stole the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year award away from T.J. Watt. In my opinion, maybe a biased opinion, but I thought that was Watt's award to win that year. And then The second thing that it kind of brought up to me was the question of, is he a top 5 cornerback of the 2010s? And I'm not sure. I did some research. I looked up some names. I collected 6 names that I think are in that upper echelon, and I wasn't sure how to rank them. But I have Richard Sherman, Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey, Darrell Reavis, and Darius Slay. It's probably those are probably the 6 best corners of the 2010s. I'm not entirely sure.
Read off the names again. Read off the names
Top
again.
5. Richard Sherman,
Yep.
Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Darrell Reavis. I think Ramsey, Reavis, and Sherman are in there, no doubt. And then it's the debate of who do you cut between Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Peterson, and Darius Slay.
I might say Peterson.
And I think what gets it is the fact that Stephon Gilmore has that defensive player of the year. But if you take that DPOY away, I think it becomes a much more closer debate, because those are 6 really good cornerbacks, and it's tough. And I'm not just throwing shade at Stephon Gilmore. Like he was like that. Like, great player, but he's right there, if not. But I think I think Darius Slay is probably pretty firmly in there too at the 4 spot, and it's either Gilmore or Peterson gets left out.
I might put Gilmore at the 5 and say Peterson's left off.
It's like when you're making an all-time list for like quarterbacks, and it's like you can make an argument for this so-and-so guy that's pretty much right in like the end shelf to get up to that trajectory of like top guys. Like I was thinking of a guy like I don't know if this is a great one, Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers, like you can make an argument, like I guess for Packer fans per se or not, but like you can say like Aaron Rodgers could be going down as one of the greatest in terms of his overall ever. But the problem is with Aaron Rodgers is he just doesn't have the accolades. Like, you know, you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has what now? 4 Super Bowls? 4 Super Bowls?
3.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, you know, he's up there with Brady and Montana, and Peyton Manning. He's up there as well. Like Aaron Rodgers is kind of like, you know, Stephon Gilmore. Like we were talking kind of.
I mean, I would have probably said maybe a Phillip Rivers who never got to a Super Bowl, but you know, broke
that's
every.
more of a comment.
Because I think Rodgers has too many MVPs to have the non-accolade thing. Because in my opinion, he's the most skilled thrower of the football of all time, which I think is a very different thing than the best quarterback of all time. Like the passes Aaron Rodgers was able to make in his prime, and some of the passes he was still able to make in his twilight year last year with the Steelers, I think are just some throws that you look at and you're like, only Aaron Rodgers is able to make those kind of throws. Like the back-to-back Hail Marys against, what was it, the Cardinals in the 2015 divisional game? Something like that. Like, they didn't win that game, but the throws and the plays that were made by Aaron Rodgers, I think, were just one of one. I don't know who else does that.
If you remember, there's a throw, and I'm getting a little biased at this point, but there is a throw that Brady threw, and of course, this of course is it's such a what if type of situation. This is basically the Justin Herbert, if I had to make it an overall player, the what if play of what could have happened. But Tom, if you remember, Brady's incompletion pass with about 20 seconds left in terms of where he rolled out from like his own like 15, 20 yard line, and he threw an absolute like 50, 60 yard bomb that could have been in Randy Moss's hands. And like if he like even had a chance to catch it, like who knows what could have happened. Of course, obviously it didn't happen. But like that was an absolute like there's not a lot of guys that can make that type of throw like that. And I know obviously Noah's incomplete, but like obviously was talking about like throws like Hail Marys. I don't know if Brady ever got a Hail Mary.
No, Aaron Rodgers is the king of Hail Marys. Let's be honest.
By far.
Does Tom Brady not have? I mean, come to think of it, like I can't just like off the top think of like a Tom Brady Hail Mary highlight.
So Nate, the biggest thing of probably why he didn't have a lot of them was he probably was up a lot in a lot of the games that he was in. So he probably he probably didn't need to have a lot of them, to be honest.
That's a very good point. Like same thing for Ben Roethlisberger. I can't think of like a Ben Roethlisberger Hail Mary off the top of my head. I could think of like crazy passes from the 10 or the 20 that he made, but like no.
I could give you plenty of Phillip Rivers late game interceptions to break the San Diego Chargers back when I was actually an NFL fan over the last several years. But I think, though, he would probably, to Ben's point, though, I think Rivers might be a better comparison. Never got to a Super Bowl, got to a title game, played on a bad ACL, broke every franchise record known to mankind. But, is he allowed to be in that conversation? Who really knows? By the way, Tom, what bar are you at? I'm in the area. It looks cool, someone says. It's called the Teacher's Assistants. It's called the Teacher Assistants Lounge is what it is. The TA Lounge.
Pretty much.
Oh, Mr. Morgeson says hello from Disney. Two mouse ears up. Rogers is an IDIOT. Keep Reaves on the island, and Jets fans will continue to suffer.
Of course, Mr.
Yeah.
Very negative Jets fan. Hold on a minute. If he's going to barge in here,
Is there a Jets fan that isn't negative, though? I mean, with all they've been through, it's hard to be positive and a Jets fan at the same time.
Yo, Nate, you absolutely love football forecasts next year.
Oh my God,
Nate.
in for a good one next season.
It's the absolute best show, honestly, to me on this network. I have to say, and we just have we have videos of random stuff almost every week. We just shoot the shit a lot of the time. Tom, of course, actually, Nate. Tom, you want to tell Nate essentially what you're in charge of for the program? Are you in charge of the videos?
So I do a lot of parody videos where you're making fun of certain teams and certain people, especially ones who are performing pretty badly, my own included.
Who's your team?
The Jets trade Emporium video, by the way, folks, is still my favorite. Oh, by the way, for those
probably an all-timer. I made my team as the Giants.
I like the Giants this year. I think they put together a nice roster, even though Dexter Lawrence is now
let's ride.
I'm praying. I am praying.
Sexy Dexy decided not.
Oh yes. Yes.
Damn it.
Hang on.
How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, Nate. So we have, for me, thankfully, I kind of like being solo, at least for my team. But we have a lot of people that are like so Johnny, of course, I get to meet Johnny at some point. Johnny's kind of like our,
he does my job for football forecast. He's the lead moderator.
I was going to say, the guy that
By the way, Ben, good job saying that football forecast is the best show. When meanwhile, Callan's right here, and we have 400 viewers. What?
You know what? My team lost the national championship. Can I have a little grace?
No, you're not. You're not allowed to grieve. You won 2 of the last time.
The culture is actually damn good.
Oh man, sorry, Callan. Listen, Callan. You know what? Your show is the best.
Oh man,
this time of year too. I'd say football forecast for fall is the best show. I probably should.
Only because of of the hard work of Mr. Albano with all the videos. Like, again, Nick mentions the trade Emporium at this rate. So there you go. That video is like an all-timer. All right, guys, we'll go from all.
I've been doing videos for that show for, I want to say 3 or 4 seasons now, and it's probably it might be the #1 video I've ever made for the channel.
Gotta be.
At what point on the forecast?
I about fell out of my chair when I first saw that video the day before the show when it took the air. All right, guys, we'll go back to the NBA real quick, though. This has obviously, guys, been another major talking point, though, regarding injuries. But, of course, the news, though, came out, I think, last weekend involving the fact of the NBA now getting involved with investigating the Milwaukee Bucks for their discrepancies regarding the health of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, guys, this has been a very, very chaotic season for the Bucks regarding Giannis's health, his play, but team struggling. The never-ending trade rumors about Giannis being, let go. He's, he wants to stay loyal to the city of Milwaukee and the franchise. They're trying to cut him loose, though. But again, who's going to pay the money to get that contract, though? So, Nate Miller, your thoughts about how this is happening, and more importantly, does the NBA, though, in your mind, Nate, actually care about the Bucks injury report, or are they just simply trying to find a way to find a team more money?
I think it's a mixture of both. I definitely think tanking in the NBA is a problem, and they definitely got out in front of it earlier in the season with the fine, the $500,000 fine to the Jazz and the $100,000 fine to the Pacers. And now with the Bucks, I think it's interesting because part of me is like, how much is it tanking and how much is it potentially the Milwaukee Bucks trying to keep Giannis healthy through the end of the season to have him have maybe a higher trade value this off season? That's kind of where my head's at. I think it could be, I really don't think it's tanking. It could be a little bit. Like, obviously they'd probably want to get the number 1 overall pick, but at the same time, this isn't really a draft class, in my opinion. Like the last couple years, we'll strike 2024 from the record. That's kind of like the equivalent of the 2013 NFL draft. Like 2024 NBA draft just kind of came and went. But like, this isn't where the tank for Flag, the tank for Wemby or Paulo. Like it this year, it's kind of teams might go with Acuff or DeBansta or I'm blanking. Who's the Kansas guy? That's probably who's really highly sought after. I can't think of his name right now, but and there's the Boozers, obviously. So in my head, there's a couple different ways. Like the top 5 picks probably in this year's draft are all pretty solid in terms of value you're getting for whoever you're going to have on your squad. So I don't think they're going to be tanking that hard because they're so bad already that they're probably going to end up in the top 5. But I think they might be trying to make a splash play to trade Giannis and just keep him healthy so his draft stock can be his trade stock can be as high as possible with very little injury question.
Ben, I'm glad that Nate said what he said, though. Like, is this more of a thing, though, that they're trying to keep Giannis healthy for the trade value? Because I think he's still in his prime, though, but he's had these nagging calf problems, maybe a back problem, and stuff like that. But more importantly, though, Ben, again, I think we've had this argument, or this take, I should say, on this network for a high majority of this NBA season since the All-Star break, where I first joined DiMartino for MTGP that weekend when Johnny was out, about the All-Star game, but also about how this player participation policy, just in a way has, I think, turned a lot of people off of watching the NBA. Mm-hmm. When it boils down to, you can have star players not play games. And if it's not reported the right way, well, it's a fine of $1,000. I think the one that set, myself, DeMart, and Morganson off the cliff was basically the one about the Jazz get fined, as Nate said, like $500,000. They still win the game that they get fined for. But like I've long believed, though, Tom, Ben, and for that matter, Nate, can anybody out there tell me the exact definition of what tanking looks like? Because I think that the only team that I think is spared right now from the tanking argument, from my perspective, should be Indiana, because they literally do not have Halliburton because of the ripped Achilles, as we saw during the playoffs last season, and also that they lost Miles Turner. Right? I don't know if that can be the same thing as like teams like Washington, Sacramento, Utah, who are always notoriously losing franchise. And I hate to say it, Mr. Morganson, the Nets are in that conversation too, with their record being 18-15, sadly, where things are at, though. Maybe Joe should worry about the Nets a bit more than the Liberty and the Seals and Desert Dogs and his other things here in SoCal. But Ben, your thoughts, I think, Ben, your thoughts about this whole thing involving Giannis and his injury health, though, but now that the NBA is trying to snuff it out, though, and get to the bottom of it.
It's such a weird situation. And Giannis is definitely, him and the Bucks have had some stuff the last couple of years, and it's kind of like a back and forth of just like unnecessary drama. It's like, there's a couple of times like, I might consider requesting a trade. Obviously, I've had some stuff, whether it's the coach, whether it's just like, his overall ball share of things, whether it's just trying to win the championship again. I mean, the Bucks, let's be frank. I mean, they obviously, their overall core, it's not the same it once was. I mean, the Celtics, as a Celtics fan, I'm a Celtics fan, Nate. You can kind of don't get the overall trend here, but we've been kicking the Bucks' ass the whole entire year, and they just, even with Giannis, I think playing that was one time, like it's not the same type of team. So, Giannis is also playing too, saying that he's healthy, while the Bucks decide to say, well, we're gonna just kind of keep you hostage, and there's a lot of I think it's going to get to a point, and I think you can kind of say, well, they'll probably figure something out. I think they'll get to a point this offseason where like he actually might decide to say, listen, I have my fun run here, but now it's kind of getting to the overall where it's like you're neck and neck button heads, and eventually sometimes when it's been an awesome business for so long, it gets to a point where you have to kind of cut the cord. So we'll see kind of what happens, but I just really do think that I think he likes the overall city. I think he likes to play for the Bucks. But I do think that, with him saying, I can play, and the fact is like they're not letting him play, even when their season's obviously pretty much already out at this point in time. I think just kind of just like is like a slap in the face almost, because there's a lot of great players, even if the team is already out, they'll still play. Obviously because they're playing for contracts, they're obviously playing for their overall pride of the team. And it's just he hasn't played. So we'll see what happens, but of course, it could be a hot commodity. It could be I'm not going Luka Dončić-esque type of situation, because I think their ownership wouldn't be so stupid enough to pull a trade off like that. But I do think there could be something there this offseason of him asking for a change of scenery. I guess I could say the best of it.
Tom, I think Christy's right, though, where she said that they seem desperate. I think it's just more confusing about what exactly is the direction with Milwaukee. Again, 5 years removed, though, from their first title since 1971, when, by the way, they were in the Western Conference and they won that championship. So for those that play trivia, the Bucks are the only team to win a title in both the Western Conference and Eastern Conference. Thank me later. But with that, though, Tom, in mind, I think, though, I don't know if it's desperation. It's more confusion about what exactly should the blueprint look like, though, in the 414 area code next season. About you start the year with Giannis, you let him play the season if he's healthy, you look for somebody at the trade deadline. Do you ask for a massive haul of a player, maybe future draft picks, though, in the offseason come draft day? Again, I don't know what that looks like, though, Tom. I think, though, I'd be very much perplexed, though, as a Bucks fan, and maybe I think a little bit on the, like a little bit, though, upset probably at the franchise for how they're kind of letting him not, maybe in a way, get to play that final game, though, with the Bucks. In fact, it is the end, though. But, Tom, what do you think, though, about this whole situation involving the NBA now getting involved, though, about who's right, who's wrong here with Giannis and the Bucks organization when it comes to the injury reports?
Well, first of all, I'll say that with a little bit of the Nick bias in me, I was kind of hoping. Let me correct that. I don't know if I was hoping about the potential that Giannis would land with the Knicks, because there is also the idea of how much you would want to give up and the direction that the Knicks have been going. Now, obviously, they've been a little concerning slump heading into the postseason, but that's neither here nor there. As far as this situation goes, it's time for me to bring back an old sound effect that I haven't used in a while.
C-O-N. Conspiracy?
Here's my whole take to this, and I think it's going to a point that you just mentioned, Callan, a little while ago about the idea of tanking. And it seems like the line of you're tanking for X reasons, with the example of the Bucks, the whole theory about them keeping Giannis healthy to potentially deal him at some sort of trade deadline next season, being there, and being a genuinely horrific, bad team. That line is getting blurred and more blurred by the minute, because obviously there are bad teams here. The Nets are a bad team. The Bulls this season have been a bad team.
The Pacers.
The Pacers.
Shocking.
They're the odd man out, as I already said.
That was shocking.
Pacers get a little bit of leeway.
They get a pass.
Halliburton, but they don't control Halliburton getting hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I said that they are the odd man out, though. But Wizards, Brooklyn, Sacramento, Utah, Portland,
there are
New Orleans.
But then that's the thing. But on that point, actually, let me make it 3 levels.
Yes,
about what I want to say. Something like the Bucks, the theory about what the Bucks are doing. Number 2, a team just being genuinely bad. And number 3, a team that's genuinely bad for years, but it brings about the question, almost similar, Callan, to Major League Baseball, where you talk about teams like the A's and, well, sorry, Nate, the Pirates, where they're consistently bad for years, and you wonder, is this just bad luck, or is there something more going on behind the scenes? But you know why I play that conspiracy sound effect? You know who's at a lot of the blame for this? The NBA itself. If you really think about it, the NBA has had this problem with load management for years now and has failed to solve it. What?
Over a decade.
Over a decade now, and it has failed to solve it in an effective way. And now you've got all the freaking anti-tanking measures that they're trying to put in place.
Expanding the lottery to 22 teams now.
And honestly, Callan, I talked about this on last week's program with Nick D. I think you're opening up the potential that you might worsen the situation. You might get more teams being bad for the sake of all the changes that they're making to the lottery and expansion of the lottery. So at this point, I don't think as much as or what the Bucks do. If the theory is true, what the Bucks are doing, yeah, it's terrible. But the NBA has no halo and angel's wings. They're terrible in itself for allowing all of this over effective load management, over usage of load management, and this allowing of tanking to happen.
Yeah, no, like I think earlier on when they put this into effect, I think it was kind of like load management was pretty much like they were anticipating, guys, of course, would sit maybe for a game or two, and then, of course, they obviously would come back. Now it's more of they are taking advantage of this to an extent in which they should be able to reconvene and kind of figure of do we kind of go back to the rules of before in which we got to enforce some rules or just I don't know what they do. I mean, look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he is legit the king of load management. And it sucks because Kawhi Leonard is one of the most fun. I mean, look, Kawhi Leonard, I mean, granted, it's an all-star game, but you saw what Kawhi Leonard did in the all-star game. He was going absolutely berserk. And it's like, bro, like, if you actually could play on the court and not be on the freaking bench, I mean, load management, it's like we could see this potential, and it's really, really unfortunate.
Are we going to get an NBA one day where everyone is playing in bubbles, and the bubbles have little holes in them where they can put their arms out to try to.
And they're all labeled fragile, handle with care,
or as it says in Home Alone, fragile.
Yes, fragile. Yes, no kidding. That's all things with the NBA. All right, guys, to the NHL, another day and more firings with only a handful of games left. But shockingly enough, though, gentlemen, the Islanders have blown out Patrick Waugh over the weekend with only 4 games left in the regular season, bringing in Peter DeBoer to become the new head coach and also getting a contract extension to match that of the current team GM. The Isles are currently third right now in the Metro, but currently on a 4-game losing streak and right now 1 point back of the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, while the Devils today blew out Tom Fitzgerald as their team GM, who are now on track to miss the postseason for the second time in a matter of 3 seasons and currently sits 7th right now in the Metro Division. So, Tom, this is now the 3rd time in a matter of a couple of games, or days, I should say, that we have officially seen their firings being made in the NHL when it's come to this point of the season regarding the very much shocking news of Bruce Cassidy being fired by the Vegas Golden Knights, in place there with John Tortorella getting pulled out of the TNT booth. And now this one here, though, with Patrick Waugh on Easter Sunday getting fired, along with Tom Fitzgerald today of the Devils getting blown out. So, Tom, your overall thoughts, though, on a very much loony couple of days for the NHL as we get towards the Stanley Cup playoffs, but also more importantly, though, Tom, firings being made, though, at this stage of the NHL season.
Yeah. You want my overall thoughts? That's basically my overall thought. I mean, come on, man. Now, this might be a little bit different of a situation. I'm talking about the Islanders one specifically with the hiring of DeBoer. I think this is a little bit of different of a situation as compared to the Golden Knights. And I say that only because the Islanders are essentially playing from behind at this point.
They are, yes.
If the playoffs started today, they're out of it. When the Vegas Golden Knights did this days ago, Vegas still has a playoff spot. And that's why I gave that hot take to you last week about if Vegas was doing what they did in hiring John Tortorella and firing their old coach on with just games remaining, then they absolutely needed to make the playoffs. And I guess the Islanders, as much as they're the one playing from behind because of their 4-game losing streak, being out of the playoffs at the playoffs start today, I guess they're playing copycat of some sort. And I'm worried now at this point, Callan, is this going to become a little bit of a trend in the NHL? Like, is this what we're going to see next season too?
Who knows?
That's my concern. And see, even Christy agrees with me. This is a bit of a WTF situation. And as far as the Devils firing their general manager, look, the direction that the direction of the Devils at this point just has not been good. They've, as you mentioned, Callan, that this is the second season and third that in 3 seasons that they're going to miss the playoffs. Pardon me. And sorry. And even though the Eastern Conference was a little more open, so you could argue that the Devils could have managed to sneak their way in somehow, it just hasn't been good from early on. I mean, Hughes, they lost Jack Hughes for a lot of this season.
Again.
Right. And this is the second time that that's happened within these 3 seasons. But again, I'm going to use an expression that Nick Morgus and I have used on ETB Sports constantly with the past. One man a team does not make. So a whole organization cannot come crashing down because you don't have your star player. Can there be lower expectations? Absolutely. But that's why some people, if we're going to go back to the NBA first, some people are making a case about the Pacers and feeling shocked about it because of how bad they performed. Now, granted, you expect them to perform bad without Tyrese Halliburton, but there's still another 11, 12, 13 players on an NBA active roster, so you might as well get some talent out of it. But again, it seems like what's going on with the Devils is that when they don't have Jack Hughes, they are definitely a couple of steps behind instead of just one. I mean, if you want another example here in the local New York metropolitan area, the New York Yankees in 2023, when they lost Aaron Judge for a good chunk, if not most of the season, and they just completely fell apart.
Yeah. He was like the only offense they were able to generate that year. And it was like almost like the following year they made the World Series. And I think that was because in large part, like injuries like that every once in a while can, in a weird way, be a plus, because when you take that big of a jump back after losing one guy, it makes the organization take a step back and say, okay, maybe we're not as good as we think because we're kind of running everything through this one guy. We need to get a little more security around him for like a doomsday case scenario where an Aaron Judge or a Jack Hughes gets hurt.
I'll just say, Nate, I'm bracing myself for, the Yankees might be off to a good start, but I'm bracing myself the way everything's looking, almost like a repeat of last year, 2 years of this summer, of just expecting a potential another dip for that team.
June is the Yankees' worst enemy.
June and July.
They give up. It's like they take a summer vacation in June. They're like, all right, we'll be back to playing baseball in August competitively. They'll have a 19-game division lead or something like that, and it'll whittle down to 4.
Just going to be like the Tigers who had a 15.5-game lead and gave it away last year.
That was unbelievable.
That was remarkable.
But Callan, as far as
I was in school at Michigan State at the time of that happening around a lot of Detroit Lions fans, and you would have thought the world was burning the way they were describing what was happening to the Detroit Tigers.
But as far as this NHL topic goes, Callan, like I said, I think I'm very concerned potentially about it. Obviously we're not going to know for another season, but next end of season comes around. Are we going to see this again?
And Ben, I think that's a good note that Tom makes, because this is now the second coaching move that we've had in the matter of a week, with only a handful of games left, though, in what is right now, I think, one of the closest finishes to the finish line we're going to have probably in recent NHL history. It's going to come down probably to the final game of the season, I think on the 17th or 18th or 19th, whenever the season does come to a close, though. But Ben, again, we had the Cassidy firing in Vegas with Torch replacing him. But then we had Patrick Waugh get canned by the Islanders on Sunday, replaced by Peter DeBoer, who I believe permanently Calvin got a 3-year contract to match it with the current team GM. Then, of course, Tom Fitzgerald, the GM for the Devils, was thrown out today, though. So, Ben, are you on maybe in agreement, though, with myself and Tom that this is probably a alarming trend right now that we might see become a thing, though, as we come down the pipeline for the Stanley Cup playoffs here at this rate?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you can make an argument for it for sure. The Islanders this year, I mean, I'm not an Islander fan, but I mean, of course, I'm of course in around the New York metropolitan area. Like they for a lot of this year had a really solid team. They kind of fall apart at the end here, but it's a crazy business. I mean, Bruce Cassidy being out as Vegas coach, I mean, for a guy that I absolutely adored in Boston. Of course, I was so upset when we fired him originally. I was like, "What's going on?" And John Tortorella kind of being an interesting choice of the backup. So I guess it's just kind of the overall way of like how they wanted to have it structurally run or something. I don't know. But it's kind of just an overall lesson in sports. Is like it doesn't matter like how many Stanley Cups you have, how much like pedigree that you have, like everything's on the line for you. You have to go out and prove it. And so I'll be curious to see Callan in terms of like, the next couple of years. It just kind of depends like how teams are looking. But obviously, if teams are kind of like in the middle, they kind of fall apart like the Islanders, or just teams that are just absolutely just usually god awful. I will say a team, that obviously has really just been on the kind of uprise, but it's been absolutely ass for years. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but, of course, they have a lot of young budding pieces, is the San Jose Sharks. I mean, the San Jose Sharks have a lot of good pieces coming up. I really do, but I don't think they're going to be they're going to make the playoffs, because of probably the Western Conference is so loaded. There's just a lot of teams, though, I think that will definitely be having some new faces of product down the road. It'll be very, very interesting to say the least. But I do think with Roy being moved on Easter Sunday out of all days was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, San Jose's right now. I mean, this is how it is right now in the Western Conference wildcard race. Nashville, San Jose, and LA are all tied at 81, but Nashville's playing LA right now at this rate in downtown LA. So the winner of that game is going to remain in the number 2 wildcard position right now in the Western Conference. And Nate, looking over standings again, only 4 games are left now for the Islanders. They're 1 point behind Ottawa, who's hanging on to that last spot by 1 point at 90 and 89 points, though. Nate, is it good, though, or bad, though, in your mind, though, that, again, you've gotten all the way to the finish line? Practically, you're right there. I mean, you're 1 point back. I mean, obviously, you're hoping for Ottawa to drop a game here or drop a point here, and you can get 2 points somehow. But, though, Nate, good or bad, though, for both Vegas and also for the Islanders to throw out the head coach, though, with only 4 to 5 games left in the regular season when they're trying to make a playoff run here?
I think it's bad because say you do make the playoffs, are you going to be able to attribute in making the playoffs to changing your head coach? No, because there's only 4 or 5 games left. Like, I believe it's going to be the players winning those games, not a head coaching change. And the thing that compounds that for me is, say you happen to reach that goal and you do make the playoffs. Now you're going to be having a coach who, granted, was promoted up through the Islanders, has been with the team the entire year, but has not been the head coach. So now you're thrusting a new head coach into a playoff environment of a team that he hasn't had total control of for 95% of the season. So it's like, what are you really accomplishing? Yes, you may find yourself making the playoffs, but you're almost certainly going to be a first-round exit because of inexperienced head coaching. Like, I know they're also 1 point behind the Philadelphia Flyers as well, so there's still a chance that they could finish third in their division. And I would love that because I believe if the Penguins were to match up with an inexperienced head coached Islanders team, that might be a 4 or 5 game series, even though it's been a team that's played them competitively all year. Because in my opinion, there's just like an unfamiliarity now with the coach and his players a little bit, because no matter what kind of coach you've been in the organization throughout the entirety of the year, now having the head coaching duties, especially with all this pressure on you, because let's be real. The lights are bright in New York, regardless of what team you are. Like if you are a New York sports team, you are under fire like 24/7. So all eyes are going to be on this guy. All these fans are going to be thinking, all right, we fired Raw. So this guy is clearly going to be the reason that if we make the playoffs, we succeed. And then if they don't, then there's going to be all this scrutiny towards how the Islanders completely mismanaged this situation, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no, it's going to be a completely awful head start for DeBoer if that happens. And as you mentioned, the front office of the Islanders are going to get absolutely killed. By the way, didn't DeBoer get fired on a Christmas and get hired on an Easter?
When he was in Dallas, I think, yes.
That's insane. As far as this whole conversation goes, I mean, I guess like I said, the concern for me is this going to become a thing in, if not just hockey, in sports? The idea, we always had the idea of letting players finish out a season. Maybe not anymore.
I was going to say, because I think Nate brought up a hell of a point though in the pre-lounge talk today. Mike Malone getting heaved out of Denver before the playoffs began for David Adelman.
Exactly, and I think the Nuggets. I believe it was in 7 games they lost to the Thunder last year, right in the second round.
I think so.
I think coaching makes a huge difference in that series. And on the topic of Mike Malone, kind of a side thing, but new North Carolina basketball head coach, Mike Malone.
Yeah, congrats to him.
Congrats.
That is such an interesting hire to me. I think I know I'm kind of deviating real quick, but I will get back on the hockey here in a second. I think that's an interesting question of, did North Carolina really want Mike Malone, or did they just not want to wait for Billy Donovan anymore?
They saw him on NBA Countdown and say, listen, we'll give this guy a job. We feel bad.
Yeah, who knows? By the way, guys, as it stands right now, again, we still have that LA-Nashville game in progress, but if the playoffs began today, Colorado-Nashville, Dallas-Minnesota, Edmonton-Utah, Anaheim-Vegas, Tampa Bay-Boston, Buffalo-Montreal, Carolina-Ottawa, Pittsburgh-Philadelphia would be your 16 teams making the playoff field right now in the NHL.
That's a fire first round.
Holy
Edmonton,
cow,
I think, goes out first round.
For the first round, God, kill me.
Edmonton might get booted in the first round against Utah because, I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl can do all they want, but as a Penguins fan, I know if you have Tristan Jarry in that, good luck.
Can the man save a beach ball? I don't think so.
I mean, like I said before the show, I mean, Callan's madness. Buffalo is in, Toronto is out, and the defending back-to-back champion Florida is out.
Yep.
And somehow Anaheim's in there, despite them losing 5 in a row and having injuries to Pavel Mintyukov, Radko Gudas, and Cutter Gauthier right now. But another team, like Ben said about San Jose, but Anaheim also building this thing, though, through the years of all their young kids, though, who have been blossoming. I don't think people had Beckett Seneca, who was obviously the surprise 3rd overall pick a couple years ago, bursting onto the scene as he has. So I think he's basically almost taken over all the rookie records that Paul Kariya owned in 93, 95 at one point, though, in Anaheim, in Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier being a 35-plus goal scorer, though, as well. So, I mean, that's talk about a amazing first round. But I think, though, Tom, before we move on here, I think what we also talked about, the fact that a Dallas or Colorado is going to be out after round 2 is a disgrace to the sport, though, if you ask me.
I mean, you can point to the system that the NHL has in place right now for its format in determining the playoff teams. And yet at the same time, like I just said out loud, for this kind of playoffs, I mean, these are some fire first round matchups. So,
100%.
I as much as I want to say, that's a shame that they're going to be out by round 2, at the same time, it feels like this is going to be the nuttiest. I mean, Stanley Cup playoffs are one of the best, if not the best kind of playoffs in professional sports.
Easily.
But
100%.
But it feels like this is going to be the nuttiest one in recent years.
I want to make a proclamation, though, that the NHL should bring in Jack Hughes to play in the playoffs after what he did for our country to absolutely beat the living shit out of Canada and the Olympics. God bless America. Jack Hughes, you're American hero. Love you.
Free bird, yeah.
Nate, I just want to ask you, by the way, What did you think about the Olympics in terms of as a whole with the U.S. men's Olympic team?
I'm in a very interesting spot anytime Canada goes up against the U.S. in hockey because I root for Sidney. He's my favorite hockey player of all time. I root for Sidney Crosby in everything he does.
Understandable.
Which the fact that he got injured made it a little bit easier for me to just fully root for the USA because even if like there was no Crosby to root for in that final game, even though he would have gotten a medal. But I really did enjoy the Olympics. I thought I don't know who the player's name is, but like someone's got to get that guy in check. He injured Crosby and took Matthews out for the season. I mean, that is
we gotta talk about the man of the hour. Cal, I was actually gonna ask you this. The Tkachuk brothers, have you ever gotten the chance to listen to their podcasts? And
here and there I have, yes.
Okay, so there was a podcast show that they did with Connor Hellebuck. It was an incredible episode. And Nate and Tom, I don't know if you got the chance to see this. And get the chance to, by the way, get the chance to watch it. Connor Hellebuck, of course, the incredible save that, of course, we all know for forever in terms of the one-handed stick save that he made. During the episode, he decided to literally talk to Tkachuk, and literally during the episode, he walked up the stairs, grabbed the goalie stick that he made the save, and literally go right in front of the camera and literally show them the mark that he made that was on the stick. And like they were the Tkachuk brothers, I just remember just dying laughing. I'm like, that is absolutely sick just after the fact because he's probably always like, I don't give a crap, at the moment. Like, I got to make the same no matter what. But you look at it now and it's like, that's freaking sick.
When you have a
like a battle scar.
Right. You have a physical mark to show a legendary moment. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, like, I think the Kachucks are like, just like saying like Helly, like, you don't have to now go out to the bars anymore. Like, you legitimately should get just free shots like everywhere you go.
None of them should.
No, especially the Chuck brothers. For heaven's sake. Lord help us all.
That was a hell of a party.
You want the guy to break more of his teeth?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. By the way, guys, I before we move on here to our next topic, USA Hockey put out a social media post today. Does anybody want to take a guess at how many times Free Bird was played during the course of the Olympic and Paralympic Games for ice hockey?
Oh my God.
74. Feel like that's a lot.
Ben?
I don't even like. Fuck it. I'll go a million.
All right, so we got a pretty big spread to start. Guessing between 74 and a million, probably.
Tom, any guesses?
I'll go 57. Who was closest?
Christy was the closest. 105 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 105 times during the course of
Hey, the way I said a million, you might as well probably the whole entire year you could make a case for it.
I mean, if you want to factor all the Budweiser commercials since the Super Bowl of the Eagle and the horse.
Yeah, the Budweiser commercials, the Olympics, probably everybody's Spotify.
Hey, I could be onto something, never know.
All right. So they broke it down, by the way. So, yes, 105 goals were scored by Team USA, men's, women's, and the Paralympic team. The women scored 33, as we know. The men scored 26. The Paralympic team scored 46 goals because they beat everybody like 15-0 over the whole course of their tournament, by the way. So I thought that was a cool little sidebar nugget for the day. Guys, we're going to go under the coaster and talk about Joe Adell and his 3 robbed homers against the Mariners on Saturday, including him literally flipping over the low wall in right field at Angel Stadium to rob J.P. Crawford of a home run. But also, guys, on the flip side, Mike Trout leaves another game over the weekend after being hit on the hand by a pitch, a recurring issue for the Angels superstar player, though, but also Trout for the first time seemed to pop off, though, about the Mariners pitching staff over the course of the weekend, though. So with that, Ben, if you're an Angel fan, how do you process, though, Joe Adell simply being Superman with his defense, but also seeing Mike Trout go down with another injury yet again after this weekend against Seattle?
There's one guy only just feel for outside of Mike Trout, and that is my boy James Gonzalez. Shout out to James. In terms of for Mike Trout, because he's just so good for baseball, and I don't know what the baseball gods decide to put on Mike Trout now these days. It's just every single year there always to just be some new thing that happens. And it's like opening day. He goes out, balls out for a couple of games against Houston. We're like, all right, here it is. Here you go. This is, of course, going to be the action where Mike Trout, is always back. And he was phenomenal in that first weekend. It's like, awesome, great. And then now we obviously see he gets hit in the hand or whatever.
Right on the back of his left hand. Even with the pad on it, though, like a lot of the guys wear nowadays, he still got hit on that hand.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially because, he's probably had so many situations already with, a lot of stuff. It just adds on more pain. It's just for him. It's he can't catch a break. That's the biggest thing. And then, sorry, what was your other question?
Just mainly about what about Joe Adell? I mean, I've been to games though where you see maybe one home run robbed. Maybe I saw 2 homers get robbed in a game by both Merrill and Tatis last season, but not one guy robbing 3 in one game.
Yeah, no. So not only he did it, but essentially, I think there was a 1-0 final. So
it ended up saving the game for them.
Yeah. My favorite was, I mean, of course I didn't watch it, but my favorite was when I think it was the last one. There was
the one that he caught it and fell over the wall and made the catch, and that photo got taken that made the rounds on social media.
Yeah, no, that was pretty incredible because it's it's you can just there's kind of a little bit of a gap opening in which he caught the ball, and you just kind of have the fans on one side and the fans on the other, and you just have a massive giant player right in the middle with basically, hey, I caught it, Joe Adell. You talk about a guy that should get rewarded for not having free drinks for the rest of the week after what he did, to say the least. But he's going to be fun for them for sure if they have anything. But yeah, I got to say, I mean, I think robbing 3 homers is honestly more exciting and more, it's rarely occurs more than a guy hitting 3 home runs. I think players hit 3 home runs a lot more for sure than robbing 3 homers. I mean, it's hard enough, like Callan, you mentioned, I think robbing 1 home run is big enough, but robbing 2, let alone 3. I mean, you're talking about this is you can't even pitch to him. It's you can't even hit to him.
Yeah.
Because he's basically just a magnet back there.
You catch the Mariners whiteboard outside their locker room the next day?
Do not hit the ball to Joseph Adell.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you gotta do something, right?
And somebody ended up hitting a homer in Matt Vasgersian on the Sunday. Emily tonight even said, and that's one that Joe Adell won't be able to catch this time around.
By the way, that is the 3 home runs is a first recorded. I mean, the first time ever happened in a recorded Major League Baseball game.
That's insane.
There had to be 2, right? There was 2 by somebody.
Probably.
Yeah, 3 for sure. Definitely not. I mean, that's
yeah, I mean, Tom, it's sadly, like Ben said, it's a double-edged sword, though. Again, you want to celebrate Joe Adell, who, I think, sadly, we remember Joe for some Canseco-esque plays of the ball going off his glove and over the wall, or bad reads in the outfield, though. Then it's like the ultimate redemption game of robbing, 2 homers at the, at the main wall, and then going over the short wall and right, on the, into the first row. And again, that photo of him, holding up his glove like I got the ball, at the very end. But also, again, though, Tom, Tom, like Ben said, though, it's a double whammy because again, we're talking about Mike Trout again getting injured in some capacity, though, which again has just been sadly a bad hallmark for his career, though, again here early in the year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just sad because think about somebody like Mike Trout and all the expectation on him. He's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer. And it's just, is he going to be? Probably. But with the consequence of, I think both things can be true if you can say, yes, Mike Trout is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you can also say Mike Trout did not live up to his potential. And part of that is just the Angels. Because I remember seeing Joe Adell come up through, and I'll be very honest with you guys. I was not high on Joe Adell watching him try to come up through the ranks. And if I remember right, it was a little bit of a rough start to his major league career.
It was.
When he first came up. So I think this is just Joe Adele and the rough start that he had, plus robbing 3 home runs, it's tremendous. It's a noteworthy thing, and Joe Adele has already left an impact on Major League Baseball, because this night will be remembered forever and ever in MLB history. But at the same rate, that rough start with Joe Adele and the constant injuries with Mike Trout, and the fact that you can say Mike Trout's career, let alone not just his prime, his career has been wasted. You can attribute all that to just Angels ownership and how the Angels have been run since Mike Trout first got drafted by the Angels in 2009, maybe a little bit after that, because that year they did reach the American League Championship Series. But a good portion of Mike Trout's career, Angels front office has just been terrible.
And it's been one playoff run, and that was a 3-game sweep of the hands of the Royals in 2014.
2014, yep. Which
is just bonkers to think, though. Nate, your thoughts, though, again, 3 home run robberies for Joe Adele. Again, amazing photo, again, of him robbing that last homer and falling over the wall. But again, the Mike Trout injury saga continues again.
So, first of all, I think it's the best defensive performance in the history of Major League Baseball. And I say that because the fact that it was 1-0, I've never seen a player win the team the game for them on defense like that. Sure, you have a game-winning diving catch every once in a while, or I don't qualify a pitcher because obviously pitchers win games for their team all the time. They're able to take over. But in terms of a position player in the field, purely on the defensive side of the ball, I've never seen anything like that before. I think it's a 1-of-1. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again, probably, just because think of the pure odds of the fact that 3 guys had to hit what would have been home runs to right field in the first place, and they all had to be within reach of Joe Adele, and he had to catch all 3 in a 1-run game. I mean, I think the performance is truly a once-in-a-lifetime thing that you're going to see in terms of defensive takeover. And for Mike Trout, it's just sad. Like, I miss when Mike Trout was just the man. Like, I can equate it. You can equate his fall off the best to like MLB The Show ratings. Honestly, like you'd pull him a couple years ago in like a pack you get him as a diamond. He's a 99 overall. It's bit, and now like this year he's like an 85, and it's just like seeing it for some reason. Seeing it numerically like that just puts it in a whole different light for me. It's like, damn, like he's really just not the same anymore. And you can attribute that a lot to the Angels. I think they're one of those organizations that we talked about earlier that just find ways to lose. Like pitching has been their Achilles heel. I mean, they had Mike Trout and Ohtani at the same time and didn't make the playoffs. Like when Trout was playing at an MVP level and Ohtani was playing at an MVP level. So I think it's just really sad and unfortunate the way Mike Trout's career has gone, even though he has made his mark within Major League Baseball. But at the same time, Joe Adele, I mean, greatest defensive performance, single player defensive performance of all time in Major League Baseball. And I truly don't think we'll ever see something get replicated like that ever again, at least not my lifetime.
On the Trout thing, I mean, I'm actually looking at his numbers: 1,761 hits, 406 home runs. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about this in the style of, oh, his career is going to be over. But at the same rate, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, if somebody, maybe it's stupid to go about, this ballot Hall of Famer, because a Hall of Famer is a Hall of Famer. At the same rate, I look at these numbers, and if somebody gave me the take of Mike Trout is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I might agree. I might say that
MVP is an individual accolades.
That's the thing. It's like, I think he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but if somebody came to me and said no, second or third ballot, the constant injury year after year is making it.
I think you'd have to say that that right now with the injury woes, he probably isn't number one. I think it's probably 2, 3, 4.
I think and this is where it gets stupid with Major League Baseball. It depends on the class that he's in.
I think he's first ballot regardless. I think just given what he's done.
And this is something before before the ETB days. Yeah, this is before the ETB days, but I was still early podcasting days with Nick Morgeson. We got the chance to talk to John Chambi, Boog, and I believe something that he mentioned to us back in that day, because that's why I said here's where it gets stupid. I believe what Boog had told us. I think a lot of this first ballot, 10th ballot, 5th ballot BS, limit to 10 names on the Hall of Fame is stupid. You're a Hall of Famer or you're not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. Mike Trout is a Hall of Famer. And the fact that we're going to sit here now, not just us and in this moment, I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, anybody in general.
First ball, second ballot, like, stop. He's a Hall of Famer. And part of that's just the BS that is the MLB Hall of Fame system. I think that needs an overhaul, but
I mean, I would argue outside of maybe Ohtani or Judge that he's the most decorated player in Major League Baseball right now. Like in terms of active players, I'd say Mike Trout is the most decorated, maybe only rivaled by Ohtani or Judge in terms of accolades and career stats. I mean, I know Stanton.
This is the Ohtani Judge era.
Yeah.
For Stanton, the question is going to be if he can get to 500 if he can stay healthy enough to get to 500 home runs before.
I think he's going to be one of those guys that plays until he hits the milestone. Like
I agree.
I think he's at 457. Like with just the amount of power he has, he's late 30s. I don't think he's going to be 40 necessarily soon. I think he might be like 35 or 36.
I think the question is just going to be, now that the Yankees are going to be entering soon, I think there's still one more year, but soon entering that point where the Marlins are starting to eat some of the money, depending on how healthy he is. The questions of if he's going to be worth it, because he is playing on a very big contract. So that's why I said I'm not sure if hopefully by the end of his Yankee tenure, whatever that may be, he gets to 500, but I could very well see a situation like you're talking about, Nate, where he plays until he gets the milestone. And that means, random teams, picking him up on 1-year deals and basically playing as a DH until he gets it.
I think it'll only take him 3 more years max, though, because I think he's at like 457 with the amount of power he has over all those games. I feel like it won't take him long.
Nate, like I said, I think it just depends on how healthy he can be.
Yeah, and like you said, he can't open a bag of chips or a jar of pickles or anything, but he can still hit a baseball, man.
That very much is true, and I mean, you would hate to like say, well, Trout's going to be this Hall of Fame, like Tom's point was though, I mean, and if and when that day comes, he'll be the only or the second ever Angel player with an Angel logo on his head to go into the Hall of Fame, if you can believe that. Like the greats like Ryan and Carew all went in, though, with different teams, not with the Angels.
Is the first Vladimir Guerrero, or did he go in as an Expo? Okay.
No, he went in as an Angel.
I'm surprised. Who was that closer the Angels had for the longest time?
Francisco Rodriguez.
Is he not a Hall of Famer, or is he and he didn't go in as the Angels?
No.
Not yet.
Interesting.
Not yet. All right, guys, we'll get to one final segment for the evening. It's time for us to pour one out for a couple of people who had a weekend to forget. The options, guys, is Patrick Waugh's tenure with the Islanders, UConn basketball, men's and women's, and sadly, Mike Trout's health once again. So, Tom, who do you pour one out for on this Monday night here on the West Coast?
Well, in spite of me being in the New York area and in spite of what I just said about Mike Trout, my pour one out is going to go to UConn. I mean, fantastic run, but it's just gotta sting to be so close in both the men's and the women's, fall short, and then on the women's, especially with the women's side, having to deal with the controversy of the handshake. In your words, Callan, the handshake that wasn't, having to deal with that as well. So, I mean, successful run still, and I think you guys are always going to have. I say to Ben and to all the UConn Nation, you guys are always going to have that performance against Duke, an unbelievable, legit, historic NCAA March Madness comeback. But, you guys still have your legacy, and at some point you guys are going to get to championships again. So I pour one out for you guys.
All right, Nate, pour one out as our therapy session for the night. So again, you can pick one of these three options. Again, Patrick Washington with the Islanders, UConn hoops, or Mike Trout. Who do you pour one out for the night at the bar this evening?
It's a tough one because I think it came back that Mike Trout's going to be okay. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything too long a time for him. So just because of that, my pouring one out is going to be for Patrick Waugh. It was an unfair firing. It made no sense. Like, if anything needed to be changed, it could have waited until the season ended. I also am going to pour one out for Islanders fans at the same time because I don't think anything positive comes of this unless you happen to win a playoff series. I mean, you lost the head coach that had you in the mix the entire season. Yeah, you lost some poor games that maybe you shouldn't have, and you got cold towards the end. I get that, but that's not fully on the coach. I think the coach needs to have some consistent bad goings before a firing happens. So I think it's going to be nothing but disarray for the Islanders here in the short term, given the circumstances. And I hope Patrick Waugh finds another head coaching job because in the NHL, because I think he deserves it for what he was able to do with an Islanders team that was mostly just carried by a first overall pick rookie defenseman this year. And I hope he finds an opening, and I hope the first game that they play the Islanders with Waugh on the other side that they absolutely mash him.
Before I get to Ben real quick,
I have a feeling I know what he'll pick.
Before that though, one last update. The Predators and Kings guys have gone to overtime.
Oh,
that is now the 32nd overtime game that the LA Kings have played, which expands upon their NHL record for overtime games in a single season.
God. Actually, I do have a scoring update myself. The Nuggets have won tonight. The Nuggets have now overtaken the Lakers for the 3 seed in the Western Conference. Which means if the playoffs started today, the Lakers would play the Rockets.
Okay. So maybe lesser of two evils for them, as we said earlier on in the show. But Ben, we think we know where you're going with this one, but who do you pour one out for the night?
Yeah, that's what I got right here. Let me take a quick drink here.
Literally pouring one out. Absolutely love it.
I like how we all had the same thought of making a drink as we poured one out.
No, I mean, listen, yeah, it was a great season. Like Tal mentioned, it obviously sucks that, neither both the women's or men's team in the Final Four. You're obviously so used to at least seeing one of them kind of pull it out. Unfortunately, it didn't happen to be, but I think it was just an overall fun run. To get into March, there's a lot of programs that legitimately don't have like bullet programs getting all the way down to the final end. So it just makes, like what I mentioned, just the overall program so special. And I can't fault for losing to 2 teams that are very, very good programs. Obviously, on the men's side with Michigan, they were the 2024 UConn team. They obviously just were a little bit better of a team. I'm not really like pissed per se. I'm just kind of like accepting it. Like I kind of had a feeling of it, and it's what it is. And I'm very so proud of the boys. The women's side, I was a little bit more kind of like damn about because like he just felt like they would just never lose again, and even against the better competition. But give credit to South Carolina, and I just think it also is really good for women's basketball. Cal, I know that we're really big in women's basketball for sure, and just the competition level. I think like every year it's just gotten more and more better over time. So, but yeah, I had to pour it out for my UConn Huskies. We'll be back for sure. At least I would hope so. And it was a hell of a run from both sides of things, despite the outcomes.
Yeah, Ben, I'm pouring a double out for UConn today for men's and women's, and furthermore, again from downtown LA, again the Predators and Kings now are going to a shootout. That means that all 3 games they played this season have gone to a shootout for the regular season.
Ever happened in hockey where you've had like a matchup where just every like game?
It's bonkers about how that has happened.
Yeah.
But That game is of paramount proportions, though, for the last wild card spot right now in the NHL Western Conference, which is why we've been kind of keeping a bit of a close eye on that right now, because the winner of that game is going to either pad their lead in the wild card spot as Nashville has right now, or the Kings will leapfrog San Jose and Nashville to take over the top spot, or the number 2 spot, I should say, in the NHL Western Conference wild card race. But guys, before we close up on the first night of April, first Monday of April, I should say, and you look at the clock and you realize that some nights the box score is the least interesting thing that happened. We leave the night, though, with UCLA on top of the mountain in women's basketball after they dismantled South Carolina, and it wasn't just a win; it was a shift in the plates of women's basketball. Westwood has its first title, and the rest of the country officially has a problem. But as the Bruins cut down the Nets in Phoenix, the Wolverines are doing so as well for the first time since the Fab Five era in Indianapolis. And the Lakers are looking at an empty court, wondering how they're going to survive without Luka, Dončić, and Austin Reaves. It is the duality of the game. One team is celebrating a legacy, and the other is just trying to find a pulse of this rate. And speaking of pulses, again, Joe Adell stealing 3 home runs in a single game is the kind of defensive masterclass that makes you wonder if the physics of the outfield fence even apply to him. The ultimate high bounced up by the ultimate low of seeing Mike Trout once again clutching his hand after a hit by pitch. And in this sport, the distance between a highlight reel and the IL is roughly 3 inches of leather and wood. In the NHL, to close things out, Patrick Waugh found out the hard way that the legendary status that he has is a title that's not guaranteed a paycheck on the island. The Islanders are starting over while the Kings and Predators play in a shootout for the 3rd different time on the season. A huge thank you to both Ben Kruse, Tom Albano, and the newest member of the Lounge family and ETB family, for that matter, Nate Miller, for helping me break down a night that had everything from all things national champs to all things involving injury reports across baseball. Quick update, folks. Nate is back with us as well on Hitting from the Cycle this upcoming week as well. You'll also see Tom filling in for Nick Morgeson and Johnny Montalbano on both MTGP and ETB Sports this week. Nick DiMartino takes the place of Nick Morgeson on Press Row on Wednesday, and also, as we also mentioned earlier in the show, but again, we have some shifting of the schedule for the Lounge starting on Sunday. The program moves officially from Monday to Sunday, starting this upcoming week, April 12th, from 2 to 5 p.m., then in our new time slot from 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 11 Eastern, with both myself and Nick DiMartino behind the bar for a 3-hour spectacle coming up in the next couple of weeks. Though, with that in mind, though, until Sunday, not Monday, but until Sunday, the Lounge is officially going to be closed until next Sunday. Again, 3-hour show starting next Sunday. We're first going to be first one will be from 2 to 5 Pacific, and then the following week after 5 to 8 p.m. and in that new time slot. For Tom Albano, Ben Kruse, and Nate Miller, Callan McClurg saying good night here from Southern California and across the country until Sunday. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.